What is up, everybody? Good evening. Good to see you all. For all you Michiganders out there, once again, yes, I am wearing my jersey. Go blue, baby! Woo! Had to do it. Final four, playoff time, man. Playoff time. I know there's not many, I don't know why, because it's such a big state. Not many Michiganders that I've met, at least, in the hobby. But a lot of Ohioans, and as long as we kick the crap out of Ohio State, I'm happy. So there you go. Let me say my usual hellos. I'm assuming Mr. Red. Yes, of course you are there, Mr. Red Jack 12. Good to see you, Brian. And Marcus, the countdown is on, sir. Thank you very much for being here as always. Appreciate you, man. Mr. Easy Go Lucky, of course. Hello. Mike, NSN Art, what is up? Let's see what the Desert Dwellers got to say. Who else? Of course, as always, my lovely wife, Vivian. Good to see you. And of course, my guests who are hiding in the green room. Ian, Jeff, don't see Matt. The Rickster, good evening. Good evening to you. And Marcus, funny that you should mention, will there be a Christmas Sunday show? There actually will be. I'll be going live. There's, just so you know, there's no theme really planned. I mean, I guess the theme is it's Christmas, yay. But I was telling my guests a few minutes ago that I typically do on Christmas Day, a couple hours after lunch, I'm free. We're all doing our own thing. So Christmas Day tends to be kind of a boring day. Sometimes we go out to in-laws, homes or whatever for meals, but I typically like to stay home on Christmas. So yes, I will be doing a show that day. May not be long. All I plan to do is perhaps open some packages of some art if it arrives on time, of some purchases I've been making this month. So if that happens in time and I get them in time, then I figure, okay, what the heck? It's Christmas. I'll open them on camera, and that's it. And there's enough of you in the who show up in the chat who want to chat. I'll gladly stick around. So there you go. And I expect to see you there then. You'll be the first one there, hopefully, Marcus. CJ, good to see you, sir, as always. And there's Matt Kennedy from the back. And Kavi, good to see you, sir. What is up, man? And what are you saying here? Sorry, guys. It's starting when we got when the claws make a debut. I'll next week. Show up and see, man. What else we got? Southern Comic Geek, sir. Hello, good to see you. Thank you for coming by. David Barr, Australia, always appreciate you. Thank you, sir. And anybody else? Anybody new? Just in time. Jason, just in time to miss my prophetic speech about Michigan football. But thank you again, as always, for coming by, sir. JC Padilla, good to see you, sir. And of course, number one Marvel fan is here, who still hasn't told us if he's related to number one Groove fan. Although number one Groove fan ultimately went back to being Duke Fleet, so you're probably not related. And yes, sir. Next week, sir. We'll see. I'm not sure so much about the cosplay, though. The stocking stuffer. Yes, sir. And what up, Cesar Alvarez? Last week's guest. Had a fun time with Cesar. Caesar enjoyed it. I hope the rest of you did too. It was a fun time. I loved having that chat with him. And it went really long. And of course, because as I figured it went long, a lot of rewind watchers refused to watch it. But the main thing is we have fun live. The live part is the most fun part of these shows, of doing these shows. So although I do appreciate you rewind watchers. So thank you again, as always. Appreciate you. Emmy Comics, good to see you, sir. Appreciate it. All right, guys. So let me introduce my guests one at a time. We have the owner of Gallery 30 South in Las Vegas, Matt Kennedy. Hello, sir.
Hello.
We have my 2 or 3 weeks ago guest, Ian Saint. What is up, brother?
Hi again.
The best smile in the hobby. That's what I like to call him. There you go. And of course, my good pal. It's always a good day for a Jeff Wedding. What's up, Jeff?
Hey, people of Earth, send me your donuts.
Are you a donut lover? Are you? Hey, let me ask you guys: Is being American and all is for those of you who don't know, I'm not American. Is Krispy Kreme still like a huge deal in the United States? Like the people like, oh, I gotta get my Krispy Kreme. Like there was a while there where it seemed like people were going nuts for Krispy Kreme a few years back.
There was the
in
point
St.
where
Louis.
it broke out of its original, birth states
Okay.
and made a huge expansion nationwide, and everyone went bananas, and that kind of settled down.
Oh, I see.
Yep.
Okay. It's just another place to get whatever donuts or whatever now kind of thing.
Yeah.
If you like donuts. Okay. Okay, cool. Oh, Mr. Easy Go Lucky, what are you saying? Just had Krispy Kreme the other week. All right. Well, I guess it's still working to some degree, but Marcus says, nope, ain't a big deal anymore. There you go. And you're getting some hellos from you, Mr. Easy Go Lucky. And of course from CJ. What's up, CJ? Good to see you, sir.
Hey.
And oh, yes, because Matt mentioned this. He mentioned this to us through an email earlier today. Let me put this up here. Awesome display in the background, Matty. Look at that. You're proud. It paid off, man. It paid off. Somebody mentioned
finally framed some stuff. Yeah.
Example of someone taking advantage of the Michaels sale.
Yes.
And this is a good question, Marcus. Is that the gallery or is that your home? Because people would wonder. That's a pretty good question if you think about it.
Oh, is that what Marcus is asking me? This is my home.
Yeah.
Since I relocated from Pasadena and had to close because the building sold, actually in Pasadena, which was I think the linchpin of me moving to Las Vegas. I haven't reopened a physical location here for Gallery 30 South, but we have been doing a couple of virtual shows, and I'm kind of working out my exhibition schedule with a couple of existing galleries here before I go headlong into opening up another space.
You're opening up another space?
Yeah.
You mean so you'll have two spaces?
Well, no, the Pasadena location has closed because the building sold.
Oh, wait a second. I'm confused. Okay, so you're saying that the one in Vegas hasn't officially opened yet?
Correct.
Oh,
as a physical location. So we've been doing some virtual exhibitions.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Oh, wow. Okay, that's so contrary to what I had been thinking for the last few months. I thought it was already open, and I was so impressed because I was like, "Damn, the guy just seemed to have moved there. He's already got it all going and running." It's like, what? How do you do that? You're moving house. You're moving gallery. Like, how do? Wow. Okay. And
granted, what you can afford in Nevada versus what one can afford in Southern California, I was able to fit everything from the art gallery and everything from my apartment into the house that I purchased here. So I have probably twice as much space as I had before for way less cost.
Okay. Wow. That's good. Well, that's what it's all about, right? If you want to stay in business, it's keeping track of your costs is the most important thing, right? Keeping the costs down as much as possible. That's if you want to look at your profit margins, look at your costs first,
Yep.
So, and of course, my wife is still stuck on donuts. Wants to know what's the best donut now. I don't know.
Vegas, Jeff, you would know that. You've been here the longest.
I will say that I will say that I miss Dunkin', just the plain old Dunkin' Donuts. We used to have that. Used to be like Canada's, donut place. Yeah. And then, I'm from Quebec. So in Quebec, it used to be Dunkin' Donuts because for decades, for some reason, and I didn't even know it existed, but across Canada, we have Tim Hortons. It's called.
Tim Hortons.
Right? Yeah. And well, right, you would know because I guess they broke into the States for a while.
Yeah, they snuck across the border. So when I go back to see the wife's family in Buffalo.
Okay.
There's Tim Hortons.
Right. Yeah, but I miss Dunkin'. So when they came in, they kind of took over and all the Dunkins started going away or whatever. And I like the donuts at Dunkin's better than Tim Hortons. So I miss Dunkin's, and we don't have any anymore. So kind of sucks, but there you go, honey. It's so you're stuck with your Canadian Tim Hortons, I guess. What CJ says, the new Tim Hortons ad is you're excited about Tim Hortons ads on football. That's okay. Marcus says,
Which blowout game was that the ads were more interesting than the game?
it kind of says something. Gee, hey, you know what? Check this out. Oh my God, there's a lot of people excited about donuts. Hold on, but Caesar, what are you saying? Sad, I had only been once to the Pasadena location. Oh, he meant to go again. Yeah. See, that's why he had to move from Pasadena, Caesar, because you guys like you who wouldn't go often enough. You see,
honestly, this is a really interesting thing. It was definitely not a cost issue in leaving Pasadena. We were doing really, really well, and actually during the pandemic, business was better and better, like almost exponentially better as it progressed deeper and deeper into the global situation. But the building was actually just sold. So the woman who had been my landlord for 5 years in that location had failing health, was getting older, and just decided that she wasn't gonna kind of keep doing that as she got a little bit older, and just wanted to have a clean break and sell it. And so it's hard to book exhibitions if you don't know what your rent is going to be. So that being the case, like my rent could have doubled, probably was going to double. And so I couldn't really in good conscience, sort of levy the success of a show against any particular individual artist if I didn't know what the cost and how to price the work based on what the necessary cost of the rent was going to be. So it wasn't that we weren't getting people. Honestly, we had
no, I was just
pretty decent.
I was joking about that, just to make fun of.
Although I will blame Caesar. No, just kidding.
That's right.
Just having my fun.
It's all Caesar's fault. Yeah. Now we have Caesar's palace, so I didn't need Caesar here anyway. So.
Well, Marvel, #1 Marvel fan, tell us if you know that there's a place called Voodoo Donuts in Vegas. Are you in Vegas? Because if you are, then you're the perfect guy to be here tonight, because the whole topic of tonight's show is sort of geared towards guys like you connecting with guys like these three guys who are my guests here tonight. Let us know if you're in Vegas, man.
And I didn't know that Voodoo had moved down here from Portland.
Right.
So you know him?
No, but Voodoo Donuts I know.
Oh, Voodoo. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. They're from. Okay. Well, JC, for any New Yorkers out there, he says he's maybe saying donut plant, and Caesar. I can't believe how many people are actually. I was joking. Everybody's excited about coffee and donuts. Caesar wants to say Dunkin' has the best coffee. Okay. And that's it. Holy crap! And here comes Ron Lim with U.S. West Coasters had Winchell's Donuts. Is that like Walter Winchell? Is that just a coincidental name?
Just a coincidence, and they're not great donuts.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm honestly thinking that if you go and get somebody to do an art thing, you can put it on CAF, and you'll get so many comments. The donut comments.
Yeah.
That's a lot of donut lovers.
That's crazy, man. Look at David in Australia. Donuts on Hanukkah are the best. Okay. If you say so.
That's where we're at.
Donuts and comic books.
They make some really interesting donuts here. They got
corner shopping malls everywhere. Donuts and comic books.
Yeah.
Hello to you, Cali Comics. First time here, I see, that I can remember at least. Maybe you've been here as a lurker before. I don't know, but welcome. Thank you for dropping in. And
oh, hey, Callie. I know Callie.
Bobby says, yep. About maybe the fact
probably
Voodoo is from Portland originally, right? Okay, so you already knew that. Okay, cool. Okay,
I know in our neighborhood it's Pink Box Donuts.
And see, it's funny, right? It's all about taste, because JC's like, maybe Donut Plant, and now you got Kavi going, not for me, right? So, and Ron. He's partial to the Krispy Kreme. You see, it's all
we've circled back.
Everybody's got their own, taste, whatever that may be. But hey, man, thank you guys for, bearing with me on that whole thing. Like 10 minutes about donuts and coffee and stuff. It's kind of fun. And usually we have guys like Stanley who can't stand when I get off track about anything. Not, that, Jeff. You're smiling, Jeff, because it's true.
I did the show about nothing. I'm all in for the 10-minute segue on donuts.
Yeah, there's some people, they just don't like you shit. You know how it is. You've seen them happen. Jeff, like when they're like, we start talking about like, ooh, comic books, and what have you been reading? You read something good lately? And some of these guys in the chat, they're like, ooh, next, next. What? Relax, man. It's all related. Let's just relax. We're here to chat. It's not an interview. I keep telling everybody that. I don't do interviews, even though you guys think of them as interviews. We're just here to chat. It's like a round table of friends, and I include you guys in the chat as part of that, even though you're not live on screen. It's like a whole bunch of
definitely
just
contributing
once a week, man. That's about it. It's not an interview, so it's just chill. It's just we come here, just have some fun, shoot the breeze about whatever. Yes, the focus is on original art, but man, don't get pissed when we strive to talk about donuts for 10 minutes, or comics for Christ's sakes, But anyways, so guys, that is shit. I can't get out of the donut thing. Okay, good, thank you. Can you give us a 30-second rundown of what's on the wall? Yeah, because I was actually going to get to that anyways, Matt. So yes.
Right.
Why don't we get to that and tell us what you have on the wall behind you?
Sure. So fresh to the wall and back of me here is, I guess maybe that way, mostly Bruno Redondo Nightwing covers.
Oh.
So you have and then there's some key first pages. So like the very first reveal page of Heartless, who's kind of Nightwing's Joker. And the first cover to feature Melinda Zuko and Bitewing. The first new costume cover.
Bitewing
is Dick Grayson's dog, a three-legged dog.
Oh no, a three-legged dog.
Great, yeah, it's an amazing story actually.
Really?
So as beloved as Pizza Dog is to the Marvel fans, Bitewing is a very popular character.
What are you talking about? I was going to say Crypto, but Pizza Dog? What's
Hawkeye,
here,
right?
Matt?
Pizza Dog's from Hawkeye. Yeah.
I read one of the Hawkeye series, the popular one, the one that was really popular.
With David Aja covers, yeah. I mean, there's a whole issue that's just dedicated to Pizza Dog's origin. Pizza Dog is on the cover. Lucky the Pizza Dog.
Oh, maybe I was so sort of annoyed by that I put it out of my mind and I don't remember. I don't know.
Interesting.
Okay. I remember I do remember
but I do have a Crypto cover here, so there is a cover. So I also have Jorge Jimenez's cover to Super Sons Annual, which has Damian and John Kent, and then the two dogs. So there's the Bat Hound and also Crypto. So that's in the top. Let me see. Yeah, right there. Okay. And so there's three pieces that kind of cascade down the wall on that side that are all John Kent pieces. So as he's aged in the comics, I got to say I wasn't a super huge fan.
I was going to ask
aging up John Kent, but okay. I did love the character as kind of like this, just the adorable knockoff, half human, half Kryptonian character. And so you've got the cover to Super Sons Annual. You've got a great splash title page from Action Comics where he's holding up the cell phone, and then below that you've got the cover to when John Kent took over the Action Comics franchise, where he's sitting on the front porch as Superman leaves the Justice League and leaves Earth. So that's mainly what you see there. If you go all the way over to the other side there, you can see I've got a George Perez, Dick Grayson, Robin drawing, and then I've also got below that a Fornes illustrated cover. And then on the other wall, on this side, I've got a ton of stuff. A lot of the people that are represented over the years when I was at La Luz de Jesus Gallery and also at Gallery 30 South. You can't see everything, but there's a Bernie Wrightson chapter illustration from Frankenstein. There's a couple of Christopher Ulrich pieces. There's some Zoe Milk artwork, Joe Coleman. There's even a production art piece from a Guar video that Hunter Jackson drew. So kind of tying a little bit of...
is that like that, I don't know what they call it, new metal, thrash metal band?
Guar were kind of a shock rock band. Okay. And they certainly got a little thrashy.
GWAR?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Beavis and Butthead loved them. Guar.
Yes.
Oh, they go that far back?
Oh yeah, they go
back to the early 80s. Yeah.
Oh shit! Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and from a kind of we'll say design, like production design angle, Guar are a kind of important band. They got a full issue of Juxtapose, was dedicated to the band's art design. So it kind of broke out into, fine art circles, not just collectible circles.
Okay, cool. There's a question. I don't know who that is or what that is. Hold on. Yeah. So any Raymond Pettibon?
I do not have any Ray Pettibone stuff. I've certainly dealt it in the past. Sold a couple of pieces by Ray to Nicolas Cage way back in the day. And
When he was still collecting comics?
When he was still collecting art. And there was a huge sale that Bonham and Butterfield hosted for his personal like kind of lowbrow art collection about 10 or 12 years ago, that those Pettibone sold in. And then a few years later, Pettibone went through the roof. Very famously, he was the artist for a lot of the SST punk bands, so like Black Flag album covers. And then Sonic Youth, he did the cover to Goo, which is probably the most valuable piece of any of the artwork that he's done. I think that sold at a certain point for over $20,000. Okay. But he's very scratchy style, very kind of punk, very punk rock.
And I just want to say, because I've always loved the idea of getting into album art, rock album art. That it's, there's no established market for that, right? So it's just very, very hard to come by. You really got to find out who the artists are of your favorite, covers or whatever, and then try to find that artist, see if you can, it's very, very difficult. But the idea has always very, very much appealed to me. And I feel that out of the few examples that I've seen hit the market, I feel personally, like when you compare it to what we've seen in comic books, I feel like the sky's the limit. Like I think that stuff, like you're talking 20 grand or whatever. And yes, for most people, it's a lot of, for anybody, it's 20 grand to spend is a lot of money.
Yeah.
But I feel for what it is, music, I mean, it speaks to people more than comic books do, it's really, really worldwide. And I've always felt that if that stuff could just come out more so that a market could start to form for it and people could go after it, people knew that it was out there, I think that's a ripe market that could explode like you'd never seen before,
Well, certainly like Derek Riggs, who's famous for having done the Iron Maiden album covers. The starting point for a Derek Riggs painting is about $100,000, $120,000. And so like if it had been the cover to, I would imagine at this point that the cover to Number of the Beast is probably $1 million piece. That the cover to Peace of Mind, or even like some of the more popular singles like Aces High, or 2 Minutes to Midnight, the Trooper, any of that stuff is going to be in that neighborhood too, like $500,000 to $1 million or more. Certainly the Trooper. I mean, the Trooper's now been on the side of beer cans, for crying out loud. But you mentioned album art, and I do have some album art pieces too, just not in this room. John Scarpati, who is a art director and photographer who I did a show for about 10 years ago at La Luz de Jesus. I found out, it's funny because the focus of the show that we feature his pieces in were kind of like glam and grunge. And then I realized my favorite band is Rush.
Oh,
and I realized,
nice, baby. Nice.
Yeah, so I found out that he had done quite a bit of the photography for Hugh Symes' projects that he had worked on for Rush. So one of the albums that meant a lot to me because the age of when it came out, of course, I love the early stuff and I love Moving Pictures, which is kind of the middle career. But Presto is just one of those records, which was their return to rock and roll after doing a lot of kind of new wave records, and was just like that cassette that I played in my first car, every day. And I realized that he had taken that rabbits coming out of the hat photo, and it was in his studio, and it's huge. It's, it's like 5 feet tall. So I actually have that in my hallway, the one large artist proof that he made of the Presto cover. And then I represented Chuck D for his very first exhibition of illustration.
I saw that on your website.
I had him draw the cover of It Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back in his style.
Oh yeah.
And that's actually been published in a book of Chuck's artwork that's going to be coming out shortly.
Okay, cool. You know what? This is a perfect segue then. Because everybody who's here tonight watching, they know who the regulars in particular. They know they've not seen you here, at least on my channel before. So before we get into the whole, building comic art collector gatherings, and particularly in Vegas, since the viewers do know a little bit already about Ian and Jeff. Maybe if you don't mind, give us a little bit about your background with starting at La Luta Jesus Gallery, which, by the way, for everybody who doesn't know, Matt was is it fair to say director? Is that
yes, exactly the term? Yes.
Okay, director at La Luz de Jesus. That's translated to Jesus' light.
The Light of Jesus Gallery,
or the Light of Jesus Gallery, which you might want to tell us what the hell were they thinking when they ironic that I say what the hell were they thinking when we're talking about a gallery named after Jesus' light,
ironic to be sure. I actually know the story of that. So the owner of the gallery is a guy named Billy Shire. Billy Shire is one of the most important figures in the Los Angeles art scene. Definitely, the father of the lowbrow art movement, transitioning into fine art, where, Mark Ryden very famously sort of changed the game by starting to call the work pop surrealism. And so, you can charge more for pop surrealism than you can for lowbrow. And that kind of exploded this whole type of tattoo, animation, comic art, especially Zap comics, underground comic art, into the collectors of fine art. So people that had been collecting actually Picasso's and, maybe perhaps better known illustrative, or even, some of the, modern artists whose work was perhaps a little bit more abstract, started collecting and gravitating, as we all do, I think, towards our own generation. And so, you mentioned album cover artwork. Well, maybe the most famous album cover artist for fine artists is Robert Williams, whose illustration Appetite for Destruction graces the cover of one of the most successful albums of all time in Guns N' Roses, first long playing record, Appetite for Destruction. Now, that album came out in 1987, but the paintings from 1978 was very famously banned, and then they switched to a tattoo design to be the cover of the album. So getting an original copy of Guns N' Roses Appetite for Destruction with that Robert Williams cover, it's still a valuable record today.
Right.
And we had shown Robert Williams at La Luz de Jesus. Even before I got there, he had a couple of shows. I first got there in 1991, where we did shows with Robert, with S. Clay Wilson, a lot of the Zap guys. We did the Zap 13 show. There's a very famous photograph of all the artists from Zap Comics, and I actually took that photo with, the gallery camera, and it's been printed in numerous publications at this point, of like all the Zap artists, the only photograph of all the Zap artists in one photo, and that was back in '93. But certainly as animation, as people started going to school for animation, you had people like Tim Biscup, who came out of animation, who became fine artists. I mentioned Mark Ryden. I do have a couple of very small Mark Ryden pieces, including a piece that he made with a Gallery 30 South business card as part of the actual artwork. And one of our coasters from the coaster show that I've done, for 10 years. So, and that kind of play on lowbrow, what's more lowbrow, than a beer coaster. And having done a show now where I've sold at this point, over 10,000 coasters to different people over the years.
Wow.
And coming out of that sort of egalitarian, space at La Luz de Jesus that Billy Shire ran, he told me that he and his brother, Peter Shire, were in Mexico, and they had some mezcal, and they walked out, and it was still kind of bright, and they looked up, and Peter turned to him and said, "That looks like the light of Jesus." And that's like, La Luz de Jesus. And so that's, and then the gallery was already going to be open. It was just going to be called the Wacko Gallery. Oh. And he decided to call it La Luz de Jesus. The very first poster, which was a Day of the Dead show, which would have been in May, I believe, it was October of 1986, the first La Luz de Jesus show. It just said Day of the Dead show at Wacko. And it was upstairs on Melrose from Soap Plant, and Wacko was right next door at the time. They ended up moving a little bit further down the street. For those 90s kids in the audience that remember Los Angeles in the 90s, they probably recall Wacko when it was down a row of funhouse mirrors that kind of led to a warehouse off Melrose, which was just genius marketing of getting a really inexpensive space that people took a lot of pictures of in that, pre-viral era where you just wanted a photograph in front of this thing that you would take to a place and they would develop that film, and you'd have a photo that you could stick in an album someplace. But we worked a lot with rock stars and, you know, a lot of celebrity collectors. I've continued to maintain my relationships with quite a few of the people who are probably known to people watching the show because they watch their films. You know, people like Johnny Depp, people like Kevin Smith, you know, who have been fantastic patrons of the arts, and especially of illustrative and outsider type artwork. So that that kind of sums up my beginnings in the 90s in Los Angeles. But honestly, as a kid who grew up, you know, in north of Boston, Salem and Lynn, Massachusetts.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Wow.
And so I grew up knowing, and Tom Snigoski, the comic book writer, was a very good friend of mine. Someone I knew as a kid. Steve Bissette is somebody that I knew as a kid.
But he was a Vermonter though.
Yes. So Frank Miller, the Veach brothers,
right,
and Steve Bissette were all Vermont. Bill Sienkiewicz, I think, was down in Connecticut. And so he came up and did some signings at a couple of the shops that I worked at, you know, in the 80s.
Yeah.
And, you know, and now Bill, I think, is in California. I think he's in California these days.
Right.
A lot of the guys that are known as illustrative fine artists who would come out of places like Pratt and, you know, School of the Visual Arts in New York, wound up teaching at Art Center. We ended up showing a lot of Art Center kids, and I became really good friends with a lot of those illustrators, people like Kent Williams. Certainly, you know, David Mack's a really good friend of mine, someone whose work I've exhibited over the years. So there's a long list of people that kind of knew about La Luz de Jesus and saw that as almost like this last bastion of like the fine art world, where that was still showing illustrators. And then the format got copied, and now there's a lot of places that sort of specialized in lowbrow and pop surrealism. And the, you know, the magazine juxtaposed for their first like 3 or 4 years, there were only 2 or 3 galleries that were showing work that was in its pages. So La Luz de Jesus, Psychedelic Solutions in New York City, and 01 Gallery also in LA, which was inconsistent in when it had its exhibitions. But yeah, I go kind of way back with really underground comic art. And then, you know, when I did the first pop sequentialism exhibition back in 2011, it was the first time that there had been a survey of modern superhero comic art. Like there had been shows of, and not necessarily in fine art galleries, but of like a single artist or a single comic, as we had done, you know, years earlier on Melrose at La Luz de Jesus for the Zap show. But I made the kind of central thing about the great collaborations between writers and artists, you know, like these award-winning collaborations and good pages and key pages to feature on the walls, because I thought that would speak to my collectors of fine art. But when you have to, you know, when you sell a painting, you have a bio, you have an image of the artwork, and you have a label, and the label just has the artist name, the title of the artwork, maybe the medium, the size perhaps, and the price. Right. And you kind of can't do that with comic art. You have to say, well, why is this page valuable? What's so special about this? So I ended up writing, you know, thousands of words. And I finally figured out this isn't just going to live online. I'm going to publish this. And so we took it as part of our partnership with Last Gasp, produced an 80-page giant. And, you know, this is what it ends up looking like.
Oh, cool.
You know, the only color piece was a color proof from the Watchmen, mainly because I was trying to, you know, have an entry route so people could affordably buy great comic art. And at that point, Watchmen, Dark Knight, things like that were already well out of the, you know, the capability of people to collect.
The purview of most people's wallets. Yeah.
Yes. And there were pieces that were only a couple $100 then. And so there's prices in that catalog. So it sort of also stands as one of the very first published, you know, price guides, if you will, on original comic book art. And when you go back and look and you see that I had, you know, a beautiful splash page, you know, from a double splash page of, you know, Astonishing X-Men, you know, for just a couple $1,000, you know, people are like, oh, you know, what would that cost now? You know, and there's a lot of like looking back and seeing, you know, 10 years, 11, 12 years later, how much has this stuff gone up in price, which kind of keeps it in step with an article I'd written that got picked up by Forbes a few years earlier, where I had made the claim that if you purchase published illustrative art, you know, provenance illustrative art, that the return on investment is higher than by percentage than any other art you can buy. And it stands to be true, because you can still pick up original published comic art now that's recent, that from people who are still doing, analog work for a couple $100, and then in 10 years you can expect it's going to not just double or triple and maybe be 10 times what you paid for it.
Right. Cool. All right. And so how long was it that you stayed at La Luz de Jesus Gallery? When did you leave them?
So I started in 91, and
oh yeah, you
gallery,
stopped and you came back later.
Yeah, and I came back. So I was there 91 and 95. Then I went into entertainment for years.
Okay.
I came back in 2009. Agreed in 2008 to come back in 2009.
Okay.
And I was there for 10 years basically, and opened up Gallery 30 South as a second space. Honestly, because my wife at the time was a creator of jewelry. She's museum exhibited and collected. She works under the name Adnohia. She's got her work, as I say, Statens Museum for Kunst in Denmark, Japanese museums. Her collectors are, again, like real like A-listers and literal royalty that own her pieces.
Right.
And the cost of a sort of lockout facility to create art when you're a jeweler is a lot different than just having like a place where you can paint. And so when we started looking, a lot of these places were, above $1,000. And so you start looking at the amount of space you get versus the cost.
Yeah.
And then this spot opened directly across the street from our apartment.
Wow.
And it was only a couple $100 more than, the size of a closet in a bad neighborhood in Chinatown. And so we ended up taking it over. And so when I started programming the walls, I made sure that it wasn't going to be the same type of stuff that I was showing at La Luz de Jesus, which I didn't feel would be fair to Billy.
Yeah.
The owner of the gallery. So we started doing really high concept stuff, hologram shows, installations with paper mache furniture, like really, really outside the box. And when I finally made the decision to leave, and I found another guy named Matt to take over my job, which I thought was like, get extra points for that. A really good guy.
Matt's gone, but Matt's still here.
Yeah, which I thought would be easy and became very confusing to everybody. But Matthew Gardocki, he's a Matthew, not a Matt, is the person I handpicked to take over for me, and he's done a fantastic job. And so then I gave it a little bit of time and started bringing in a few more of the illustrators. And then I realized that, my vision for Gallery 30 South and my vision for what I imagined pop sequentialism were going to be had a lot in common, and started making them a little bit more of the same thing. And so it's kind of like there's not a lot that separates the two. Like I could easily have made just one brand. I like keeping it a little bit separate. Maybe it's the Libra in me. I don't know. Maybe it's, having grown up, on the East Coast and lived on the West Coast, and now here I am still on, Pacific time, but in Las Vegas.
Right.
That there's something kind of nice about having a dichotomy to things. And I mean, the word juxtapose means, two things that aren't necessarily alike right next to each other. And that kind of speaks to a lot of what we all collect. And so I've been kind of balancing, how I want those things to coalesce, how I want them to be separate. An exhibition I have on the website right now for Gallery 30 South is a painter named Robert Craig, who's a photorealistic painter, a somewhat controversial figure. And the prior show was a show of photographs that are daguerreotype, amber type photographs from the Civil War era of the United States that have another sort of gel thrown on top of them by Scott Southern, who is an award-winning and very celebrated photographer for Vice magazine. So you have these very, very different things. One's photography, one is illustration, but easy to see them in the same collection. Like someone who collects, like if you look at this wall in back of me, there's a lot of very different stuff, but it still makes sense, and even makes sense within the context of the other pieces.
Right.
And I still work in entertainment. I still release, films. I've got a lot of movie posters and not a lot of real estate for movie posters to go on my walls. So I run into the same problems that a lot of us do, running out of space.
Well, those really take, I mean, the posters themselves are so big, and then you add the framing, and it's like, holy crap. I mean, it's really, they take up so much room, so
Yep.
I totally get it. Well, look, in the interest of showing art, because just so you guys know, watch, the viewers are going to just drop like a rock now when I say this. We don't have any art queued up for you guys tonight. It's going to be talking about the topic at hand. But in the spirit, because I know people like to look at art, and because Matt is here, I want to say about, I think it was 11 years ago, 12 years ago or something. Yeah. I bought some artwork from Matt when he was at La Luta Jesus Gallery. And I figured, just for the fun of it, since you probably haven't seen them since then, I queued them up just real quick, just so you could see them again to remind you. And I have, so this was the first one. And,
Charles Binger.
Yeah. I got 3 Bingers. Yeah. It was I did the deal for this. So I got this one.
You get 3 Bingers in Vegas, the slot will pay out.
3. Got that one.
That's a zinger, not a binger.
Exactly. Yeah. And very well said, Jeff. I like that. And of course, and this one is Lament for 4 Virgins. I love that title.
Yeah.
These are all book covers for anybody who's wondering. Paperback novels from the 50s. And the third one, which was this one, which is
that one I think was in Collier's magazine.
Well, it's another paperback novel. I don't know if they reused it in Collier's or not, but I know that it's been printed twice as a novel. I forget the name of the novel at the moment, but yeah. So
and that show came about because Charles' daughter was in back of me at Whole Foods in Pasadena. And I had gone home and showered and gotten dressed to come back to the opening. So I had an opening that night, and the gallery was in Los Feliz, and I lived in Pasadena. And so my roommate and I were going back to the gallery, and this woman's like, "Oh, don't you look nice?" I was like, "Oh, thank you. We have an opening happening tonight." Oh, my father was an artist. And it's funny, you get that a lot. Like if you're a gallerist, a lot of people like, "Oh, I'm kind of an artist," or "I'm kind of this." And so I've learned to be, very accepting of it, but not expect much. And so she told me, "Oh yeah, my dad did all these Ray Bradbury paperback book covers," which stopped me in my tracks. And I was like, "Oh, well, this is definitely somebody I need to give some information to." Gave her my card. Turns out she lived on the same street I lived on. It was a very long street, but about 2.5 miles down the street from me. And I did 3 Binger shows while I was at La Luz de Jesus.
I know. And to this day, I'm still waiting to hear from you if you're gonna. I mean, she's only getting older, not younger. I need to get some kind of at least an extensive interview article type thing for illustration magazine, perhaps.
Yeah.
If not a book. You said you were working on.
She wrote a book. Like, she wrote a biography of her father and was trying to shop it around, and nobody was biting. So she was going to pay to do it herself. And it really ended up like eating a lot of money. And I was like, well, don't put so much money into this, Rosalind. And she was very ill last time I spoke to her. She was then hospitalized. I've been trying to get back in touch with one of her neighbors, became sort of like the executor of her affairs. And I've been trying to figure out, if she's even still with us at this point. She was not young herself. Her father was born in the 19th century. So,
I wasn't sure when he was. Yeah. Oh, wow. I didn't think it was that old. Okay.
He was painting murals for World War I.
Oh.
In England. Before, he'd been painting the crown heads of Europe between World War I and World War II before he moved to the United States and got a job as a Hollywood movie poster painter, and then started working with publishers in New York City to do, because they were still doing illustration. As the posters started to go away from illustration into photographs, he had been Marilyn Monroe's favorite painter, so she wouldn't let anybody else paint her likeness except Charles Binger. But his signature was also very similar to another pulp artist, and so for years a lot of his covers were attributed to a different artist, and then a few people kind of figured out who it was.
Barry Phillips.
Yeah,
I'm basically the one who figured it out, because I already knew of Charles, who, to most paperback collectors like myself, this was like a separate person, because he had that style. When he went to a more graphic approach and he started, so not only did it look different from typically painterly stuff that he was doing. Like, for example, here, let me just give an example that just people can follow and know what I'm saying. So when I say painterly, so this, for example, this would be what I refer to as painterly. It's realistic, painterly, right? But then when he started doing this stuff, and hold on, let me get the CJ's comment there. When he started going to this more graphic approach, I mean, it looks like a totally different artist. And not only that, but he even decided to, instead of signing Binger, he signed Charles in a very script, beautiful signature. So folks, collectors of the artwork from these paperback covers, they just kept thinking, okay, there's some the mysterious Charles is how you would read about him online, And then, I don't know, I just kept doing more and more research on my own. And I was like, wait a second, man, I think the more I studied the art, I was like, I could see a point where, hey, this piece here, because I was putting together, I spent years putting together visual checklists of these paperback artists, work. And then as you start putting it together, you put it together by year and you start following the progression of their style changing. And I'm like, holy shit, I think this Charles guy might actually be Charles Binger or whatever. And then finally I became convinced it was him with more, more study, more work. And then I started going all over the internet to where all these, paperback, mostly they love the paperback fans, guys that are older than us, right? The older generation.
There's like the man's ruin stuff, with like the very exploitive, it's the man's world stuff. Like, we've got a couple guys that all have the same first name.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So, I started giving people credits online, people that were posting their covers, from the books, right? Images of the books, from their collections. I started giving them credits or correcting their credits or, telling them it's not the mysterious Charles anymore. It's Charles Binger. So I kept doing that and doing that and doing that. And finally now people, for the most part, know. I'm sure there's, some people still with mistakes online because, when it's online and it just spreads, you can never correct everything, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of fans finally know that, Charles Binger is Charles Binger and there's no mysterious Charles and it's the same guy. He just changed his style, whatever, and so
there was a book that came out after that time frame of the 500 best paperback covers of all time. And in the top 10 was his cover for Day of the Locust.
Oh, really? That was one of the ones that you guys had at the gallery.
Yeah, right? We had it. But, and so like they didn't know who had done it, until we did the show. And luckily the timing worked out that we had done the show a year before the book came out. And so they were able to identify that it was Charles Binger because there was now some evidence to support it. So that piece is actually in the collection of an Oscar award-winning film editor. There's another editor who's also a huge Binger collector, and they live on opposite coasts. One collector's in New York, one collector's in Los Angeles.
Okay.
Hey, Ruben, I recently saw you posted another paperback, a piece. There was that one with the haunted house, basically, that you'd recently posted.
Gothic paperbacks.
Yeah, that Gothic paperback. Do you have that as like a larger part of your collection, or like how? Do you do a lot of that old paperback type collecting as well?
Yeah, I started in 2008. So I got to the point where, like most people, like with comic art, right? When you're first starting out and you see things and that's cool. That looks so cheap. So a lot of the time at the beginning, it was about that's cool, but mainly it's cheap. It's like how is this 50, 60-year-old published book cover so cheap? So I was just buying everything in sight, and then of course you start to learn more about the artist and you become more discerning, you get your favorites, and then you realize who the better ones are. And that's when, it's not so cheap anymore. Now it's like I'm into the thousands per piece or whatever, just like comics. But yeah, my favorite genre is the hard-boiled crime, murder, mystery type genre. That's my favorite type of stuff. But I also have I've always had I say it's like a guilty pleasure, but the Gothics, the Gothic, they're called Gothic romance.
Yeah.
Technically, but I never use the word romance because that refers to the stories inside the books, right? The stories were Gothic romance, but typically the covers are just Gothic. You don't see romance on the cover, right? So I'm into it for the imagery, not for reading the books, you know? So yeah.
I almost did a book on those years ago. I almost did a book on Gothic romance paperback covers, but there's really only 5 types of Gothic romance covers. Like there's the woman in front of the castle or the house. Then there's the woman and the man in front of the castle in the house. There's 2 women in front of the castle or the house with maybe a man on a horseback in back of them. And then there's the supernatural Gothic, which there's maybe like a spirit that's moving by a tree near a woman in front of a castle or a house. So it's like I realized as I started gathering all these images, and luckily all the paperbacks were saying who the artists were. In a certain point, they get reprinted, and then you realize that there were probably only about 10 people writing these books, and they were using 15 different aliases. But at one point I had 575 Gothic romance paperback books that all had different covers that all looked almost exactly alike. Right. And I'm like, who's going to buy this? It's like just way too much of the same thing in here. And I abandoned the project, but I got really far down the runway. Like it came very close to becoming an actually published book. And that would have been around, I want to say 2007.
Okay. Yeah. Well, look, there's plenty of people online that they're like, like even in illustration groups on Facebook, let's say, you post an image of a Gothic, right? And I take it seriously. I like this stuff. Otherwise, I wouldn't spend my money on it, And there's always going to be that 1 or 2 guys that are like, oh yeah, but this stuff, it's so formulaic, whatever.
Yeah.
Yes, I get that. Like you're not telling us anything we don't know already. Yes, it's formulaic.
Part of the appeal.
I like it because I just like to see how the different artists interpret that formula.
Yeah.
I'm not unaware of the obvious. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I still like the imagery. So
I think
I like to see how the different artists tackle it,
Yeah.
So that's it. But like to your point, Ian, earlier, that was more one of my favorite artists from that genre, and he draws very creepy, scary stuff that I can only imagine comes from the visions, memories that he has. I don't know if you ended up reading the background that I told people in my description to go read the
I think I did, but it's been a while since I remember.
Okay, anyways, he was a Holocaust survivor or whatever, and
I think I do remember that.
It was a whole crazy, scary story or whatever, But cool imagery. But before we'll hop right into our topic for tonight, of course, the main topic. But just real quick, paperback painted covers look great framed on walls. Dino, do you have some, or where have you seen some? Because that statement sounds like you've seen people have them on their walls. I'd be interested to know.
That's Dino's other room.
Say again.
That's Dino's other room.
And I guess, sorry, man, I got to your comment too late. I don't know what you're referring to, but yeah, go blue. And what else we got here? I prefer Hearts making a joke, I guess. I prefer pen gals. Yeah, I don't know what you guys are referring to. Heart, yes or no? Okay. All right. Okay. All right, guys. So let's get into the topic. So yeah, like everybody watching knows, so tonight's episode is called "What Happens in Vegas." ... Hopefully continues to grow. So it is about the idea of putting together, or not everybody can put them together, attending comic art collector gatherings. I've said it over and over the years that for me, certainly a big part of the enjoyment of being in the hobby has always been the people. So meeting different collectors that share our passion, right? And especially when you get to meet people, you get to know them a little bit better. You find out that you have other things in common in life, right? And that's even more special, right? Because you get more things in common, but then you always have that comic art thing that it really binds you together, kind of thing, And so I am fortunate enough Thankfully, that I'm sorry, I'm just getting distracted by look behind your room. I don't know. I guess you're making some kind of joke about the scary, spooky gothic stuff. I don't know. Sorry, but oh, and Dino's answering with sorry. There's a delay, everybody. There's a delay in when I can see the comments. So just admire several collectors that painted. Okay, cool. Yeah, there's a lot of them actually on CAF, by the way, for anybody who doesn't know. Yeah, there's a few galleries that have paperback cover art, so especially the vintage stuff. But yeah, so that's it. So I'm fortunate enough that I don't have a local gathering that I can attend. Local, I do go to one every year. Collector Jeff Singh, a lot of people know him. He's been on my show.
Yep.
And he's in the Toronto area. He's about 30, 40 minutes outside Toronto. That's about a roughly 6-hour drive for me. But for me, I go there with a friend every year, and luckily it's because Jeff not only has the space to put us up, he's nice enough to invite people. He says Jeff is always invited. He said he's basically open invitations to anybody pretty much, and he says if it's people coming from like out of town, he puts people up. And depending on how many people stay over, you may not get a bed of your own. You may have a couch or whatever, but you have a place to stay, and that's the nice thing. And yeah, so I've been going for, I believe, 7 or 8 years every year, other than 2020 because of COVID. And it's just fantastic. I actually, Jeff had been asking me to go to. He had been inviting me probably 15 years ago. But at the time, I don't remember him saying, oh, you can stay over, whatever. And I was just like, well, yeah, how do I drive there for 6 hours, attend this thing that finishes like at midnight or a little after midnight? And then what happens? Like, I'm not going to drive 6 hours back or what, So for years, and plus, like, and when he, at a certain point, he did start saying, oh, you can stay over, you can stay over. But at that point, I was like, I don't want to impose. I mean, I had no idea what kind of room he had at the house, So I'm just thinking this guy's asking me to, just stay over. But, I don't like to impose on people. So I said no for many years before I finally said, okay, yes, I'll finally come and check it out. And it was the best move I ever made, guys. I'm telling you, for not just my friends here on camera, but those of you in the chat, those of you watching on Rewind. If you've never done it, if you've never attended anything like this, it's fantastic. If you ever have the opportunity to do so, you absolutely should, because I mean, what can be greater than getting together with a bunch of pals, even if they're not all pals. Some of them are going to obviously be strangers to you, but it's a great way to meet other collectors in the hobby as well, right? And I mean, for those of you who are not aware of what happens at these gatherings, these art collector gatherings, typically it's held either at someone's home, or I know of some where somebody rents like a little room, like in a sort of motel, hotel type situation, and they'll spread out tables or whatever, and everybody who attends should bring, say, a portfolio of art, at least some amount of art. And the whole idea is to not only, hello, how are you? My name is this and that. You get to meet people, but you let everybody look at your portfolio. You look at everybody else's portfolios. It's an art gathering. That's what it is. It's a gathering of collectors to meet each other, get familiar with each other, share art with one another, and it's just a great way to socialize. So it's similar to convention going, except you don't really need to attend the convention, and there's no $400 tickets to get into the convention and getting in line and all that crap, So the one that I've been going to at Jeff Singh's house, so that one he's been doing it, like I said, probably 15 years or so, something like that. And luckily, well, he'll be moving next summer. He should be moving home. So it's up in the air as to what's going to happen after that. But so far in this current home, he's always been able to put in anywhere from 25 to 35 guests for these gatherings, which is really pretty damn huge,
It might as well be a hotel.
Say again?
It might as well be a hotel.
It might as well be a hotel. Exactly, But that's fantastic, right? Like it's so good because it's so many people, and typically like the people start strolling in at, I want to say 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and the last one or two stragglers leave at like 1 or 2 in the morning, kind of thing. And then me, my friend, and Jeff typically stay up chatting about the show after the show for another 3 hours till 5 in the morning till we finally like crash out, and so yeah, it's really like a lot of fun, and I suggest anybody. I said, if you have a chance to attend anything like this, and I would say even if the host can't put you up, if the place is near a motel that you can get for $100 or some reasonable cost, you only got to spend that money, and it's drivable within a few hours. I strongly recommend trying it out. And so tonight the focus was on getting Matt, Jeff, and Ian here, is because they are, as far as I know, there could be another one, but as far as I know, so these guys only recently started gathering together, and I don't know if you guys in the chat know or not, but Las Vegas, they're from Vegas. Las Vegas has never really been a big hotbed of comic book activity in general. For those of you who may remember, who were in the hobby back in the 2000s, I mean, there'd never been a Las Vegas convention, and all of a sudden, I want to say this was like 06, 07, 08, something like that. Suddenly, Las Vegas announced a Comic Con, and we were all like, what the hell are these guys thinking? They're crazy, man. That thing is going to go up in flames. And it did. I mean, people were coming back, showing pictures of like guys like Adam Hughes sitting at his desk like like this,
Oh, it's been a long time coming. We still haven't fully sorted it out.
Yeah. But it's better. But it's better now. It's gotten a little.
We've always had really good comic shops here in Vegas.
Okay.
And so there's been a good comic book collecting community. The comic art piece lagged behind a bit. And with all of the events in Las Vegas, I mean, besides all the casinos and all the casino shows, there's tons of other conventions and stuff coming in. So there's always 5 things to do. Hey, Daryl needs to go back to work.
Yeah.
For those of you
who's our other local.
Yeah.
For those of you in the chat who don't know, anybody watching on Rewind, Daryl is one of the members of this small, brand new art collector gathering that has been happening of late. But he works on Sundays at this hour, and so he's slacking off, just coming in to say hello to everybody. What's up, Daryl? Good to see you. Thanks. Don't get fired, man. And I don't want to get blamed for that. So, but thanks for popping in. And check this out. Sorry to interrupt, Jeff. I just noticed that Mikhail says, by the way, if anyone in SoCal is interested in a gathering, we're planning for the new year. So there you go. Cali Comics. Sorry, did one of you guys on screen with me?
I know Callie. He's from one of the locals here from Sacramento. So
Cool. So now that's where you're from. Okay, I know somebody had to bring him in. All right, cool. And there you go. See, Hearts in SoCal. Yeah, or exactly, CJ. You guys, that's another idea. Go to a B&B. I don't know how much, if that's cheaper or not, whatever. But yeah, it's worth it. See, we got he's saying he's NorCal, right? That's why you know him, right?
Yep.
But yeah, Mikhail saying probably somewhere between San Diego and LA. Okay. And so Stanley just asks, is it best to do meetups around the convention? No, I mean,
because you're too busy.
That's the thing. Exactly, Matt. Like, that's the thing. It's like, I mean, listen, sure. Can you do that? I guess if you want to, but the point is like, why would you want to when, if you're already know you're going to that particular convention, the likelihood is that X amount of people that are also going to that con. Well, you would just make plans to, well, let's just hook up at the con and whatever. We'll chat at the con, right? Like, so why would you bother, I know the one I go to happens typically, it's close to the con if you want to look at it that way. But the local Toronto con that happens every year, that's like in late August. And the get-togethering at Jeff Singh's house is usually in the second or third week of September. So it's 2 or 3 weeks after the con. That's just coincidence because that's when it works best for him, But yeah, it doesn't matter. I mean, ultimately, listen, the tough part about getting these things started in any given city that doesn't have it happening is having somebody. It takes that one person who wants it to happen badly enough, right? Who also either has the space, because then it's a little bit easier, or who's like, okay, shit, not only am I going to want to try to start it, but I don't have the space. I still want to do it though. So, okay, I'm going to be the one to have to look into, well, let me look at places to rent or what, you know? And so then there's a big expense kind of attached to it for that one person, you know? So that's why it's a little trickier and why it probably doesn't happen as often as it should, you know? But yeah, I would say no need to do that. And Dino is saying, oh yeah, exactly. Part of the exactly. Oh, look at this. Cumberbatch. Hey, Cumberbatch. Do you guys know Cumberbatch?
I do not.
I've seen Cumberbatch on the.
Yeah,
I know the name from the chat.
Oh wow.
Yeah, we've seen you from the chats in the live chats, Cumberbatch Pepperpot. So anyways, just for those of you, I mean, you all know, but I'll say it anyways. I have to say it just in case for any new people watching. In the description down below, the links to all these guys is CAF galleries. Any relevant links for Matt. It's multiple links for his online gallery. Check it out. It's all down below. And so Cumberbatch, I would just say, I mean, I know you like to hang out in these live chats of these types of shows for comic art collecting. I don't know if that automatically means, should I assume you do collect art or you just like it? But I would say if you're into it, you should reach out to either of these guys. And, you know, just to stay in touch at the very least. And, you know, the next time that these guys get together, you know, meet up with them. Why not? That'd be cool, you know? That's how these gatherings can ultimately end up becoming potentially 25 guys or 35 guys or whatever, you know? However big you want it to be. Yeah, so I say reach out and then the whole point is to have these types of things grow. So these guys are a group of 4, and for those of you who also don't know, technically it's 3 because Ian comes from really far away in NorCal.
But Ian is part of the spark that got our group together.
Yeah.
Which is why he's the honorary out of town member.
Well,
Yep.
thanks,
You
guys.
know, we all sort of began to connect, you know, during the pandemic. We were all figuring out things to do. I'd stepped away from the hobby for quite a number of years and then came back into it when I was sitting at home, you know, with nothing else to do. And yeah, that's exactly why comic conventions had a hard time setting foot here in Vegas, is Marcus's comment exactly.
Too many squirrels running about.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, yeah, how do you get people away from the casinos and the free drinks and the showgirls and whatever to go buy comic books in some ballroom somewhere down the hall?
Yeah.
There's a lot of flashy distractions.
All things we have when we gather at my house, but
well, yeah, we still do all that.
So I wanted to ask about that again. Before I do, let me just quickly, because I noticed Hart told Stanley that it's more convenient around cons. Listen, I just want to say it's 2 separate things. It's different. It's 2 totally separate things in my view to say, hey, there's a con this weekend. I know you're going. Hey, we should meet up, right? That's one thing, right? Of course, you should hook up with people when you're going to a con. Why not, right? But what we're talking about is totally different. It's not about being distracted at a con. Because if you're going to a con, you also want to do a whole bunch of things at that con, right? We're talking specifically just hardcore when you're in the mood to talk to like-minded individuals about only comic book art, right? That's not necessarily comic books or whatever, Hollywood movies and whatever, right? Like you just want to get together with art
or pizza
collectors,
or
you know? Yeah, donuts, exactly.
I didn't know NSN was so close to us.
Yeah, he's in Kingman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hung out with him.
Oh, yeah, I do know that. That's right. I do know that.
Yeah, he was there.
Yeah.
He was there.
Yep.
Yeah.
He's been to my place. Yeah.
So the thing is, we were all sitting around during the pandemic and started listening into shows like this, and you know, over at Comic Art Live and Nick's show on Friday, and eventually someone makes a comment and you realize they're talking about something here in town. So they must be a local. They mention one of the casinos, or they mention an event that just happened, and you pick up and go, hey, wait, where are you located? And so Daryl and I kind of picked up that both of us were here in Vegas. And then at some point, someone mentioned Matt was moving here. And so
I think Bill Cox.
Yeah. And so we're interacting in these chats, but we're not connecting in real life in any way. But we always keep saying it. Hey, we should get together and we should do something, go to dinner, whatever. And it just happened that over the summer, there was a weekend where another comic art collector, Larry, and Ian were both going to be in Vegas the same weekend. Mm-hmm. And we're like, well, here's the spark. We've got out-of-town folks that we must show Vegas hospitality to. And there's the reason that all of us locals finally need to get together and go do something. That's right. Thursdays, we do open mic night. Everyone can show up.
Yep.
And so that was our first get together. And then
it was held where now? Was it held at Matt's?
Kind of. It was the Tiki, Golden Tiki.
We did the Golden Tiki. And so a little piece of Vegas. Oh. And then we went back to Matt's place. Right. And as I recall, it was on a Sunday.
Right.
Because we threw your show up on the screen.
Right. That's right.
In the background while we were all flipping through.
Yeah. That's right. We had it on in the living room, TV while we were going through portfolios. Right. And Larry had his brand new Arthur Adams, double page X-Men splash. Like dangerously close to my faucet on the island in the kitchen. But yeah, that was great.
90 minutes south of Vegas. Well, there you go. You should meet up with them. You should at least get on some kind of,
we had our con.
Oh, Mike was there with you guys? Okay.
Mike came up, and then after the show, we went out to dinner and stuff. Oh, and so what's sort of unique with Vegas is, we're a tourist destination, but we also host a lot of conventions and stuff. And so James Siegel's been in town. Dino's been in town.
Yep.
And so since the first gathering with Larry and Ian, and Ian's been back to town.
Yeah.
So Ian's been about half our gatherings, even though he doesn't live here, because he's down here frequently.
Yeah.
Nice
so we finally had our excuse was, well, we're just, anytime someone comes in from out of town, there's going to be a good reason to get together and go show them someplace in Vegas, take them to eat somewhere or whatever. Right. Particularly if it's someplace that the three of us haven't been to before. So then we get a new experience. And then, we came back to my place once. We've been to Matt's place. And we go back to someone's house and then flip through art. And that's...
Daryl, you're going to get fired, dude. I can see the firing happening right as we speak, man.
He's on break.
We're supposed to have... Daryl's Bat Cave is supposed to be the next venue. So we have to figure out who's going to be in town to see the Bat Cave.
Line up the next visitor.
Yep. But I want to also say that you haven't been to a comic convention unless you've been to a comic convention with Ian. So is nobody that is more fun to follow around at a convention with Ian.
Because of how enthusiastic, I'm assuming.
Oh my God, his enthusiasm is so infectious. It is the greatest thing in the world. Really helped to get me much more into collecting than I had been. And I feel like I don't get out of the house enough. I really love my place, and I don't get out of the house as much. So any excuse to kind of get out and hang out with the guys is great. But like when there's something kind of special going on, and he's gonna be shooting video, and both Jeff and Ian cut together these great reels of the events that we host with photos and music and stuff. And it's just such a warm and fun feeling that as Jeff mentioned, that I think it was Bill Cox was like, oh, you guys, Matt's going to be moving to Vegas. You guys should totally set something up. And then Jeff reached out to me and we kind of set up that first one. And it was like, oh, Dino's going to be in town. Oh, Ian's going to be in town. And it kind of built so that the first one had like a good 5 or 6 people involved, which is kind of a perfect thing to kick it off. But we've all, continued to keep meeting up. We go out to different restaurants and just kind of hang out. And sometimes we talk about comics, sometimes we don't, but it's great to have just like a whole new peer group to with similar interests. And it's like, oh, have you bought from so and so? Are you still waiting for a commission from so and so? And we all share our resources in case, you know, like and our experiences, just to, you know, kind of
Matt,
share the
Daryl,
knowledge.
and I had lunch on Friday.
Yep.
Oh, yeah,
And we had a small, our library district hosts a small 1-day comic book festival at one of the
Yep, I
local
was there today.
libraries.
Yeah.
Well, that's actually
Okay.
comic book focused. They do another one that's comic book and comic art focused. That was last month. And so Daryl was going to be out of town, but had arranged to buy this one of those artist edition. It wasn't one of the IDW ones. It was one of the DC ones.
Graffiti.
Oh, right, where they do the 1-to-1
Yep.
reprints of the original art for an artist or a given book.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Daryl's like, I can't make it to the show. Are you going? And I'm like, yeah, I'll pick it up. And it's an excuse now for when you get back and I get back for us to go get lunch. So
Yep.
Friday was our most recent meetup. So I could hand that over to Daryl. And then, we just were talking comic art and comic books and some local news. And yeah,
and that's and like kind of was what I was saying earlier about there's many benefits, right? Like if you attend these gatherings, not only can you make some friends, right? So that you got options, right? So now it doesn't have to necessarily just be, oh, you know, maybe because like the one that I go to, it's an annual thing, right? It's a one time per year. You know, Jeff does this, and that's what we do, right? But of course, out of those people that attend, other than myself and typically George Hagenauer has driven up from Michigan. There's been a few out of towners, but other than us few guys, most of the people are fairly local to like within 1 or 2 hours, right? Within on the Canadian border, Canadian side of the border. And so a lot of those guys, if you think about it, there's typically about closer to 35 than 25. So a lot of those guys, you know, there's small little factions within that larger group of people that know each other, and they see each other regularly, or they go out for lunch, have lunches, dinners, or whatever, you know, and which is cool. So and it doesn't necessarily have to be about, you know, it's not like, oh, a dinner that you bring art and we share art or talk about art. It's just regular friendship sort of get together. Let's just have lunch together. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. And so that's another benefit of it, you know.
It is. And, you know, from my end of it, for those that are in the chat that don't know me or have looked at my calf gallery, I'm Star Wars focused.
Yeah, nobody looks at your gallery because of that, you know.
Yeah, and so other than my new pickles fetish that Ruben has been eating lately with the Andrew Hennessy art.
Nobody knows what the hell you're talking about. You realize that, right, Jeff?
Which is going to encourage people to go look at what the hell is he talking about, a pickles fetish.
Pickles.
But being
Hembeck inspired.
But being able to talk to Daryl, who's a Batman Punisher guy, and Matt, who's done all of this stuff with all the gallery work and all he's done, in addition to his own interest in comics, I'm getting a lot more. And then Ian, who's still involved in our chat group, because we've got our own separate Facebook chat going, that we've left Ian in because Ian has been so central to all of our startup with his interest in Guardians of the Galaxy and all. Yeah, I'm looking at a lot more art online than I used to, because I was so focused that I'd sort of put the blinders on to not get distracted by the squirrels.
Yeah, that happens.
It's nice to start looking at some other stuff again. So
and David all the way down in Oz says he's been meaning to organize a comic art meetup here. You guys are inspiring me. That's part of my desire to want to do an episode about this whole topic, right? Because like I said, what it all comes down to for me is it's always been about the people. Okay, I'll admit at the beginning, it was all about the art, you know. You can't, right? You know, Matt, right? Like when you're excited, you know, you're new to a hobby. God, that's all you can think about, right? The hobby, art. Let me get some more. That's all you care about, right? But ultimately, you start realizing, okay.
We all have that. Ian gave us all the dog with the squirrel at that first meetup, so we all have that toy.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Somebody said embrace the squirrels, so squirrel.
Oh, that's awesome. That's funny.
Yeah. But yeah, anyway, you know, to your point, you know, it is, and it's funny that as I've gone through cycles, you know, Jeff is very Star Wars focused, you know, Daryl is very Batman and the Punisher. And Ian's new, but he's finding like that Guardians of the Galaxy focus. And my collection was kind of like I've got so many different phases of collecting that covered a lot of different ground, that now that I'm like hanging stuff, I'm like, well, I'm going to start really specializing here, and I'm going to get rid of other stuff. So I had, some like kind of nice, almost like Grail type pieces that I've had since I curated that first exhibition in 2011 that I'm now like freeing up, and some of them are quite valuable. So it's kind of nice to have income coming in that will cover extra purchases. But Robin became a really big thing for me, and like Nightwing in particular, Dick Grayson, the character. So I've got all these different kind of pinnacle Dick Grayson pieces of artwork. And I'm like, I guess that's what I do. But then I also have these commissions that I pay people for, which are tribute pieces. So I still have like these kind of two very kind of separate things that, the wall that you can't see that's over here will be my tribute wall,
Right.
that I'll hang as much as I can. But it has, by focusing, has made it more fun, because now I'm looking for cool Guardians of the Galaxy stuff to show Ian. Have you seen this? Or if I see anything Star Wars, it's like, oh, Jeff, did you see, this is available. If I see anything Punisher or Batman, I can call Dal, I can tell Mike about it. And so like it's more fun for me if I'm almost looking for somebody else. Like, I don't know if it's because it feels less selfish, or because it's been like so much of my life connected to artwork has been finding things for other people, but it makes it more fun. And then if I find something for myself too, it's a bonus. But like, and as Jeff said, it's like, there's just a thing about Vegas and hospitality, just the hospitality industry in general. But being here, like, I feel like I have to be a mascot for Vegas. I can't just be this Californian that's relocated, and that I really have to be more part of being in Vegas. So that when people are in town, we want them to hang out and be like, hey, we're a good group of guys. And, we do want to encourage, as someone said in the comments about like trying to set up, meetings elsewhere. And, and when it got back to Bill Cox,
we like to get out of the convention centers and out of the casinos.
Yeah, because there's so much to do here.
Yeah, and that's exactly why I, when Stanley asked the question, right, is it, should you do it around the convention? For me, I'm like, that's why I said, yes, you could, but again, that's separate. That's one type of getting together with some buddies at the con, right? But I'm still saying, even if you get together with buddies at a con, when there's a con, forget that. That's not what we're talking about tonight. I'm talking about literally, you should still either put on, if you can, or if you know of somebody doing it, attend one of these specific just gathering of comic art collectors. You guys know what I'm talking about. Like, right? Like, it's not
the difference between seeing a piece of art hanging, on the art wall behind Berkey's booth at a show, and going to Matt's house and pulling out a Batman page that may have the foundations for the Joker and a couple of panels, which, he pulled out of a drawer, and you get to sit there and look at all that line work and stuff in person and take your time, and it's quiet, and you're not being jostled in a crowd, and there's not other things grabbing your attention. And so it's a slower, more low-key opportunity to also get to look at the art. And of course, as we all experienced, holding the art in person is different than looking at a scan on a screen somewhere.
Yeah. Right. And the whiskey and the wine doesn't hurt either.
Yeah, that's right. A couple drinks.
I'm the mocktail guy.
And the mocktail's for Ian. Yeah.
That's right.
And CJ, the answer is no. And it's up to Jeff if he would like to tell you where he's originally from.
Air Force family. So I grew up back and forth across the U.S. I was born in North Carolina, but I've been in Vegas for over 30 years now. So I've been here quite a while. And I saw Hart. Sneer is not quite the right word, but Star Wars elicited an UGG from him, and he said he doesn't like donuts. So I'm not sure Hart's going to fit in if he comes over to Vegas.
Oh, hold on. Is this when he said this comment?
Right. But he's in for pickles. So we all have our qualities.
Yeah.
And oh, look who's slacking off at work again. Yeah,
No soup for
Marcus.
heart.
Yeah. Look at that. What a coincidence.
There
That's
you go.
true.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
Yep.
So yeah, I guess the sort of next thing I kind of want to ask you guys is like, all right, you guys, you've gotten together a few times. Not everybody who has sort of been involved always can make it or whatever. Obviously, it's normal, right? So would you say that is what kind of determines, like let's say, oh, maybe one of you is thinking, whoever of you on screen, let's say, is thinking of, oh yeah, I should get together with the guys. And if you find out like, oh, only 2 guys are available, would that make you be more likely to just, hey, let's go get lunch or dinner or whatever, as opposed to let's meet up and look at art, just because it's not a big group to begin with. And of course, if not everybody can make it, do you feel like, I don't know, I'm not so enthused to do like an art thing because there's only going to be a total of 3 of us, let's say? Like, would you rather turn a threesome more into let's just make it a night out and get dinner kind of thing?
Well, I think Jeff is kind of the leader. Jeff is in contact, I think, with a lot of people on CAF, a lot more than I am in direct contact with.
Right.
And so they'll let him know, oh, hey, I'm going to be in Vegas. And so Jeff will figure out if he's going to be in town and if Daryl's going to be around.
Wedding is a name that's easy to remember and find, in the CAF directory.
What name?
Yeah.
Wedding.
Oh, Wedding.
My last name. Yeah.
Yeah.
As opposed to some of the other folks who we know have aliases as their gallery names, or just have a title for their gallery name. Finding Jeff Wedding on the internet. Although oddly, there are 2 of us that live in Vegas, which is mind blowing.
Oh, in Vegas alone, there's 2 of you.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I believe there are still 4 of us in the U.S. Last time I checked.
There were like 5 Matt Kennedys in L.A. It was crazy. Yeah.
Matt, that's actually not shocking. I would have thought there'd be at least 100 easily. Matt Kennedy. I was looking for you because I don't know. Are you on Instagram by any chance?
Not as my name. So the gallery 30 South is on Instagram. Pop Sequentialism is on Instagram.
Business. Right. Yeah. I was looking for Matt Kennedy, and as you imagined, there's like a billion. Right, like
there's a Chippendale, there's a professional soccer player, there's the guy that cured the Y2K bug. Yeah, there's a jazz musician, there's it's crazy. Yeah, exactly. I am not any of them as far as you know.
No, I know. Hey Nick, how's it going, man? Good to see you tonight.
Nick.
I've been waiting for you to come in, Nick, because I was gonna do my little promo of you or a little earlier, and I said, you know what? Let me just wait a little longer and see if you pop in. So let me take a moment, everybody, just real quick here. Let me pop this on screen to show everybody the URL for Nick's show, youtube.com/theexp, Friday nights at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 o'clock Pacific. And while I'm doing that or saying that, let me just show you here. This is what Nicky B looks like. What a handsome fella. There you go. Big. You can't get any more giant than that. Friday, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. It is a sales type show. But it's a lot of talking and chatting, blabbing and whatever. So it's not going to be just one of these strict, okay, next piece. But it's a lot of affordable art and occasionally some high-end art as well. So yeah, and those of us like myself included, and at least a couple of these guys. I don't think Matt's ever been there that I can remember. But a bunch of the guys here in my audience tonight are also usually in the audience, in the live chat of Nick's show as well. And we just, basically fuck around and just joke around and stuff, whatever. And yeah, it's a good time. So good way to end the work week, if particularly if you have a stressful type week every week.
Speaking of Mr. Redjack, Daryl and I actually went out. Jeff and Matt couldn't make it on that last day. So Daryl actually... the last day of the convention while I was actually in town. So Daryl.
So Ian came down to Vegas for our weekend-long convention, comic book convention. Amazing Vegas. And Matt and I both had days where we were free and other days where we weren't.
So Daryl and I, we went out and we went out to all you can eat sushi. So it was pretty fun. We were just chatting about, I mean, we chatted about everything, but we also were talking about comic art. So it's a good time out there hanging out as well. So
yeah. See, that's I mean, that's the thing. That's right. Like it's about the people, right? That's what makes it.
Yeah.
It is. And coming out of the pandemic, that's sort of been my thing as we're starting to move around and go places again.
Right.
I was in Philadelphia a couple weeks ago and drove over to Dynamite and visited with Nick and wound up jumping on the Monday night show with Rex and John for the last half hour. Just because, I've been interacting with Nick and all in the chats and stuff, and thought, well, I'm not going to be any closer, than an hour away being out here on the West Coast. So I'm going to go detour and visit Nick while I'm over there. And I drove into Brooklyn and visited Kavi, who was in the chat at least earlier tonight. And then swung by Anthony.
Kavi only ever supports me for like 5-6 minutes tops.
Well, he's probably asleep by now.
Yeah, it is East Coast.
And and so these are the things that we enjoy doing at conventions, but then get distracted by the other convention stuff. Chasing art, trying to find an artist to sign a book or get a piece of art from. When you get away from the cons, as you've said, that's when we get that one-on-one interaction with our fellow collectors. And we get to enjoy the other social aspects of the hobby.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, I know hard joking, but there are people like this. They're guaranteed there are plenty of people in the hobby that are like this, right? Oh, without original art friends, you got less competition for the art or whatever, right? Because you don't have to feel bad about, oh yeah, somebody's gonna ask me to like, hey,
I'm gonna say wrong. I'm going to say you have less competition if you have more friends.
Because
I would agree.
If I'm not going to go after a Batman or Punisher piece that I know Daryl wants. I'm not going to go after a piece of Star Wars art that I know Jeff wants. And honestly, I'm keeping my eyes out for pieces that I know that they're going to want. So the more friends you have, I think the better it is. I think it really actually helps with the collecting, and there's just a really genuine appreciation, I think, if you can help somebody score a piece. Sometimes it's helping them get in touch with an artist they want to commission, something as basic as that,
if you get beyond just being the sort of casual collector level. I mean, if you sort of become a regular collector, you build that network, whether you're meeting in person or not. And I've got the Star Wars guys that I talk to about Star Wars art, Scott, who's here in the chat, and Mikhail and Kavi. We're all in a chat group together and point out, hey, did you see this? Are you going to go after it? And we deconflict that way. It's like, I know you're trying to put that issue together, or you're getting the covers by that particular artist. I'm not intentionally going to bid you up, or I'm going to tell you up front, hey, I'm going after this piece. Good luck. And then we'll get lunch on the other end, and the winner can bring the piece.
Yeah.
I got to help somebody out with a Infantino piece that was like low priced on one of the CAF live groups. So I was just like, oh, here's one of those, because I knew it was their wheelhouse. So I spoke with them. I was like, this is your wheelhouse. I want to help you out. I saw a nice cheap Infantino. You might want to look at that.
Yep.
I want to pop a question here, guys, and any of you can take it. Feel free. Actually, you haven't done that much talking. Ian, see if you can take this one. I'm curious what you got to say, because you're also you're new to this hobby in general, right? Mm-hmm. So that's why it always kind of fascinates me too, that this is all it's I don't know, it's just so much. It's got to feel so much more different from the perspective of somebody being in a year and a half or 3 years or whatever, Mm-hmm. So let me put this one up here. Where did I just? Here it is. So Stanley is asking, does it hurt a meetup if the people have different art interests? I know we've all got our answers to that, and we probably all have the same answer. But go ahead, Ian. Tell me what you feel.
I don't think so at all, because you find out you meet up with somebody that likes Batman, and you found out you bought a piece from them. And so I'm not huge into Batman, but I was like, you know what? I just want a Batman piece in here. And then I found out that it came from Daryl anyway. So no, I don't think everybody, I'm not huge into DC other than I'm into Wonder Woman a little bit. So I'm starting to collect a little bit of Wonder Woman pieces. But I don't have that much DC. So when people are talking DC, I can't fully connect, but I do connect in that, I guess, the history of all of my art collecting did start with DC, and then I focused more on Marvel myself. I think everybody still, if they love comic books, probably still has that connection to both sides of any aisle. Dynamite with Nick, and all of a sudden I'll look at some Dynamite pieces because I love the boys. And then it really, to me, it doesn't personally matter. They start talking about it, and actually a lot of times I get interested in learning more about things once I start hearing other people's take on it, what makes them, their passions drive them. I like hearing it. So
yeah, that's a good answer. Matt or Jeff, you want to take it as well? What do you got to say about
Jeff?
that?
Oh, go ahead.
I think also, when you see someone's collection, you also might see an artist that you're not familiar with because they don't work on the comics that you read, and you're like, whoa, who did that?
Yeah.
And I'd love to get a commission from them, a character that I collect, that I appreciate, and honestly, I mean, it is a really small world in this capacity, Nick, I interviewed Elias Chatzoutis for Hustler magazine, and was able to shoot him over a preview of the interview before it ran, as an artist that he's, worked with extensively. And there's so many sideways entrances into finding really, really cool stuff that it makes sense that the people that that are collectors are going to have stuff that you're not familiar with, that you're going to be interested in for a commission, even if not outright collecting, or that a writer whose work you liked at Marvel is now at DC, or vice versa. And like, oh, are you reading this run? Are you reading this run? So there's a lot of Venn diagram that crosses over there.
Right. And for me, as an archaeologist, that question that I always get once I explain that paleontology is dinosaurs, and that's not what I do, is, well, what's the coolest thing you ever found? That's sort of the default question. And what I have to explain to folks is my interest in it and why I've been doing it so long. It's not those individual pieces. It's the story that I'm able to tell once I get to see all those pieces. And so one of my interests, and one of the things that's brought me back in the hobby again, is realizing how much I enjoyed researching and learning all of these stories behind the process on how the art is made, and behind the artist techniques and how they do it, and then the particular stories that are being told in the comic books. And so when you posted the one, and I'm forgetting the name, Ruben, but that artist we were talking about earlier,
Charles Binger,
lived through the Holocaust.
Oh, the George Seal,
right.
Yeah.
That is, and Ian has picked up some war comic pages that were one of those that are listed on, one of the dealer websites as unknown artist, unknown title. And Ian has been going through, figuring out who the artist was, figuring out what book it was published in, getting a copy of the book, figuring out what the whole story was behind it. And he's been sharing that process with us as he's been doing it.
With the new one.
And so, that variety, and all of those stories that go into everything that is the hobby, you can enjoy, whether it's a Thor thing that you like, or like me with Star Wars. I can appreciate it if Matt's telling me about it with some of the animation cells from his collection, or Ian's currently searching another story that was one of those early studios that had a lot of uncredited art behind it, and he's trying to look at little clues in the artwork or the way the pages are lettered to try to tie it back to who were the folks that were behind it. And so for me, that's been a whole nother aspect. Other than just flipping through a portfolio and going, hey, that's a cool Batman, is being able to interact with these guys and hear their stories about the research they've put in or what they've heard about the background for the piece or whatever. So that's another aspect that, yeah, you don't get just flipping through someone's gallery or portfolio.
Yeah.
So it's just another benefit of being able to take the time, and in our instance with a small group, and be able to have these kinds of conversations.
Right. And I'm
Yeah.
gonna pop a couple of comments here just to sort of interact with Derek here a little bit. Derek's a good guy. He's been on my round table before. And he's saying, so I tend to think that that's what those binder portfolios are for. Know your audience. When I've met up with friends, I'll tailor the pieces I bring to share at the venue or person. I will say that, yes, that's, I've done that too at the gathering that I go to every year. But having said that, if, for example, you're talking about a gathering of like you guys, right, on my guests here on screen, right, where it's a brand new group, it's brand new, like it's not like there's that many people to start with, so you don't have to be thinking about tailoring to any individual. I mean, and then the other thing is I say you don't have to tailor simply because of the fact that I don't want people to get the idea, because there's a lot of people out there who would love to attend these things, but I know for a fact that because of their, I don't know, shyness, if you will, whatever word you want to use, right? There's a lot of people in the hobby who they feel, and I don't think shame necessarily, that might be a strong word, but I think you'll know what I mean when I say they feel like I'm not worthy to go there and share my art, because they may have, I don't know, let's say they're collecting brand new art from, I don't know, the portfolio is full of art from the last year from random superhero comics, let's say, right? Totally brand new stuff. And they think that they see like online everywhere, all this classic stuff from decades ago, blah, blah, blah. It's more expensive. So everybody, typically attributes the more expensive stuff with being the classic stuff and the better stuff. And they would never kind of attend because they feel that I don't know what's the word, but you know what I mean, guys, right? Like they just, oh, no, man. Nobody's going to want to look at my shit. That's what they're thinking, and it's sad because I just want to say really quickly, and I'll give you guys the floor, that I'm like, you know what? I go to my gathering and man, with 35 guys, there's like every type of art imaginable, right? From Silver Age Marvel, like expensive shit, right? Up to modern day, not even mainstream. My friend Bob Kopman, who's a guest on my second round table, my first round table, the all Canadian group of friends I have, all of us who go to Jeff Singh's house for this meetup, and Bob has a focus on more sort of less mainstream, more esoteric. So he's into Peter Bagg, doing the hate, the Bradleys, for anybody who doesn't.
Buddy Bradley and family.
Yeah. Hate, neat stuff, that kind of stuff. And the thing is like I myself, I always liked the look of that stuff, but I admit, like most of us in the hobby, I'm still primarily superhero guy, whatever, right? Mainstream superhero guy. But I've always been attracted to that Peter Bagg stuff. I just never took the time to look at it. But by going to this gathering every year, one year, suddenly I'm like, hey, Bob, let me look at what you got. Because FYI, even with 35 guys there, there's so much socializing going on. At least me, I end up looking at like 4 or 5 portfolios total in the whole night.
Yeah.
You're just talking with people,
Right.
And this one year, after, my friend Bob had been there for several years already, finally I'm like, hey, Bob, let me look at what do you bring? And he had that kind of stuff, right? And I'm like, oh, wow, cool. Like the Peter Bagg, I've never seen this stuff in person, right? And I loved looking. It's sitting there for like 45 minutes probably looking at his portfolio one at a time slowly. And I happen to now own a page from need stuff or hate or whatever, one of the two. You know, I wouldn't have gotten to that point of like, hey, let me look for one and acquire one, had that day at that gathering never happened. You know, it's nice to expose yourself to different type stuff. And that's why I feel like people just, you know, we tell people, bring whatever. Like I've invited, like Jeff has told me, you know, if you want to ever invite somebody, invite them, no problem, you know. And so I've invited people and they're like I said, they're kind of like, ooh, I don't know, but like, what do people bring? I'm like, forget what people bring. You bring what you like. And that's it.
Exactly.
That's all that matters, you know?
Well, and I will mention Daryl has chimed in the chat there and has pointed out that even though he's our Batman guy, he hasn't brought a piece of Batman art.
I put this one up
of our gatherings.
Really? Is that true?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think he's waiting until we go visit the Daryl.
The Batcave. Yeah.
So,
but so Marvel, number one Marvel fan, no one near me I can trust to talk or share with. I've tried, kind of sad. Listen, I don't know what your situation is. I can't really, I don't know the details. I don't know what to say, but again, number one Marvel fan, my gathering that I attend every year, it's a 6-hour drive away. So you know, sometimes you gotta, if you want to really do this, you got to be willing to make that effort to sort of get out there and, you know, if there's one within a reasonable driving type distance, you know, ultimately it all comes down to how badly would you like to try this, you know?
Well, and you got to feel the group out.
Yeah. That's basically it.
It all started at a bar, so that helps.
Yeah.
I mean, there's also an element of, you know, I mean, I have maybe some art pieces that are very impressive to my museum curator friends that will mean absolutely zero, you know, to my comic art friends.
These other guys,
you know, and vice versa. You know, and certainly, you know, I've got some Robert Williams stuff that to my lowbrow collectors is like, oh my God, you want a Robert Williams? That isn't going to mean much to people who are more into superhero comics. But I think that what it is the enthusiasm. You know, like I buy pieces from Andy and Veronica Fish every time they put something up for sale because I like them. I love her take on all kinds of different characters. I try and find something that sort of fits within my wheelhouse, but I also, you know, not every squirrel is a squirrel. You know, like if you love it, it doesn't need to make sense within the context of anything else in your collection. And when you bring that to a show, or if you bring that to a gathering and you have a book full of Batman, but there's one Batgirl or it's all Batman, and then there's like some indie from Dark Horse, then that's the thing that people are going to be like, oh, wow, this is a little bit different from that. And that is going to bring your enthusiasm to the surface as you talk about it. And people are like, oh, what's this? You know, there's also a lot of people that have very expensive collections aren't bringing those collections. You know, they're bringing Xeroxes of those pieces to show, which is great to see because it's, you know, a great, you know, sort of proxy for what they have. But you're also not seeing the pencil line, you're not seeing the brushstroke, you're not seeing that thing that you can only see on the surface of an actual page.
All the nuance. You don't get to see any of the nuance. Yeah.
And so even if it's a collection of brand new artists of work that's only created this year in comics that none of us have read, there's still going to be like, you can look at the technique, you know, you can see that some people who are new to comics still do word balloons in the creation of the work because they haven't worked for a major company that's going to be like, well, we're going to hire somebody to do that. You know, so there's an almost instant throwback to an era that doesn't exist anymore in this new work. So I think, you know, I would say anybody who would feel discouraged of I'm less than these other things, I think know that what's going to be funny is that there's also at a certain level, when you've seen a lot of like very expensive stuff, you want to see other stuff. You want to see stuff that isn't the stuff that you look at. I want to see stuff that I don't collect. You know, I want to see, you know, who else is out there doing things. Oh, I've never seen, you know, a Sal Buscema piece from 1972 before. I want to see that. But also, oh, that person whose cover I saw, you know, maybe not a Peach Momoko level, but somebody like a little bit, you know, less known, seeing their interior pages, seeing their panel work, you know, like that. There's something great about that. And I stress that never be afraid to bring stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of us who are
good advice
tend to move away from the floppies and sort of transition to more of just an art focus, I'm
Yep.
not paying attention to what's coming out every Wednesday at
Right.
my local comic shop. And so I've got a Marvel Unlimited subscription, partly because of space. I can read more books online, but that puts me 3 months behind what's current and on shelves. And the way some of the art market is these days, people are getting art 3 to 6 months before it even shows up on the shelves anyway.
Yeah.
So seeing some of the new art, I'm either getting preview of what's coming up, or I'm seeing the stuff that I'm not actively reading fresh on the stands, but I've got the built-in lag. I'm able to see it and appreciate it and enjoy it sooner than I would have otherwise. And again, having people chasing different stuff than my interests, I get exposed to other stuff. So yeah.
And I just let me sorry, Ian, just quickly, because I just want to make sure that Derek, that Derek doesn't get pissed off at me. I'm not saying don't do that, because yes, Derek, I just want you to know, I've been to this gathering, I think 7 or 8 times. And, every year it's kind of I will admit, it's like a struggle, because it's like everybody kind of brings like a portfolio full. And I'm like, I haven't bought 48, like there's 48 slots in a portfolio if you put them back to back. I don't think I've acquired anywhere near 48 pieces in this past year. What am I going to bring this year? So I will bring stuff that, like, I know probably most people there won't give a crap about. But the idea, and this one I want to put out for those of you who've never done this, never attended these things, the idea is still that it's about gathering and sharing. As long as you bring something to share,
right?
It doesn't matter what it is. That's the whole point. You're going to all be in one room. Everybody's portfolios will be piled up on some big tables. And, people will be sitting around these tables, picking them up randomly, looking through them. So it's not like you have to be there necessarily and waiting and watching like a hawk, who's going to look and pick up my portfolio now and see what their reaction is, right? That shouldn't matter. Let the portfolio be. Whoever wants to look at it will look at it. If they like it, they like it. If they don't, they don't. It doesn't matter. The point is, you're there with stuff you like that's important to you. Just share it. You brought something to share. What you don't want is, you don't want to show up to these things and being the only guy. Yeah, I only came here to look. Don't do that. That's not cool. Don't show up without art, something, even if it's only a few pieces, because it's about everybody sharing with each other, right?
Yeah.
But Derek, I just want to say, I've done that too, right? Because like I said, every year it does get tough to decide, hey, what do I bring this year? And so sometimes I have done what you're saying. It's like, oh, you know what? I know this guy, that guy, and that guy are going to be there. You know what? I think they'd appreciate these pieces, and let me put them in my portfolio. And I will make a point to, after we get there, I'll reach out to those guys, even if they're busy talking. Once I get a free moment with them, hey guys, I brought something I think you might like, and then they show it, right? Even if
it's a themed show.
Sorry?
Or if it's a themed show, like if I'm going to a Star Wars celebration versus a San Diego Comic Con,
that's different. Yeah.
I'm gonna definitely have the Star Wars focus going to one. Well, and me, I'll still probably have a Star Wars focus.
Yeah, well, that's why. That's kind of like what Derek was saying, right? He goes to the Transformers meetup. Of course, you're going to bring Transformers art, of course, absolutely.
But then I would
small enough that there are no bench warmers.
Yeah, Joe stuff.
Say again, both of you. You crossed each other.
Go ahead, Jeff.
I was going to say, but then I would also be the guy that in the back half I'd have some G.I. Joe stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Just
because those used to run back to back.
They were
on TV here when those cartoons.
They fit together, right?
Right.
Yeah. Most people who liked one were also following the other. So they went well together. Thank you, Mr. Redjack. I appreciate that. And I think you're saying that because you watched my episode that I did on vintage paperback art. So I appreciate that. That's cool. See, that's the thing is you expose yourself to stuff you normally wouldn't to when you attend these kinds of gatherings. And you never know, it might open up a new interest for you that you suddenly like, hey, I think I might want to get a piece by that artist, Yeah. That's it's about expanding your horizons, and so it's about meeting people, but you can also expand your own horizons about the art that you're interested in. And I'll tell you guys, I'll tell you guys, and Ian, I'll let you say what you're going to say in a moment.
Mhm.
I just want to say, I will admit, and there's no reason for me not to. There have been times where I'm seated at the gathering, and some guy randomly sits next to me and says, "Hey, you want to look at my art?" Okay, which is a little awkward because, oh, sure, okay, you want to show it to me, sure, right? And there's been times where I open it up and right away I'm like, oh, fuck, I'm going to have to sit here for half an hour looking at this shit, you know? And the truth is, though, is I still realize why we're there, why I'm there. And what's happening is I start flipping and I'm like, okay, I'm looking and I'm realizing it's not my kind of thing. I don't have any personal interest to it. But what I started doing was I started asking that guy, because I'm not going to just sit here and look through your portfolio quietly pretending I like it, right? So I just started asking him questions about, oh, where'd you get this piece? How did you hear about this artist? And what is it about this? I'm like, oh, this is a very interesting piece. Why don't you tell me, tell me what about this grabbed you that made you say, I got to have that? And let them talk about it. And the thing is that if the person's talkative, at least to some degree, you suddenly start hearing things that like make you go, oh, that's interesting, right? Like, and it gives you just maybe different perspectives, if you will, so you can still pick up stuff and learn things about whether it's art or whether it's just about people and their thought process, just even when you're looking at stuff that you typically wouldn't care for. That's what I want to make. So that's why I'm saying the point being is that there's every reason in the world to attend these types of gatherings, because even in a situation like that, you can make the most of it. There's still things that you can, there's an enjoyment you can still pull out of that, even when you feel like, oh no, I got to look at this stuff. Nah, you can always make lemonade out of lemons or whatever that saying is, Sorry, go ahead, Ian.
So on CAF, I try to go through there and I'm flipping through people's pages, and a lot of times I like to leave comments on a lot of people's pages that when I'm not busy dealing with family and stuff. So I saw sometimes I go and I don't fully connect with things, but it was recently Comic Art Boston. It posted a whole slew of westerns. They were, I think
the western.
He does those 2-gun kids, I think, or something.
Yeah.
And so it was those that actually I was like, you know what? I don't have a western, but that was never like my focus. I didn't think I was gonna do westerns ever. I just never thought I was gonna do it. But seeing that stuff, I was like, you know what? I kind of like that. Maybe I should look into it. And the one that I'm searching right now that Jeff was talking about earlier that I'm currently working on was westerns. And it was just not something, it was something that really just spanned from looking at art that I don't know. Like, my happy place right now is Guardians of the Galaxy, you probably know, but all of a sudden I'm seeing everybody's CAF gallery, and that really opened me up to liking it. And that's actually the thing that's literally exciting me the most right now is working through that western, just doing the research and the history in it. So,
oh, that's cool.
So going through some of the stuff that you don't go into really can open up something. Something that you wouldn't
Ruben,
get.
You and Nick are responsible for my little side venture into, X-Men related art.
Yeah.
Because it was X-Men comics that I read as a kid up through teens and college. And then I stopped collecting and got away from it. And, sort of focused on the Star Wars stuff from the art side, partly because I can't afford the X art of my youth. But you and Nick are selling pages from newer artists on titles that happened after I stopped reading. But some of the same characters are still there. It's a different iteration. They've got new adventures going on.
Yeah.
But it's that ability to scratch that collector itch. But also, I'm now going back and reading those titles with my Marvel Unlimited app that I probably never would have gone back and read if I hadn't seen some random page that you were offering that had Pickles, the Nightcrawler style Bamf that made me think of the X-Men issue of Kitty's Fairy Tale.
Pickles the Bamf, everyone.
Nick was selling, I think it was a volume 3 New Mutants page with Ileana on it. And I'm like, I'm never going to be able to go back and at least with my current budget that I've set for myself, to go back for some of those, Demon Bear Saga, New Mutants, Bill Sienkiewicz pages that I loved when I was a comic book collector. But it's good art now, and it's characters that I remember loving back then. And so it's this new segment of the comic art community that I'm now just tapping little pieces into to have, just a few examples from some of those titles, so that when I'm flipping through and I want, a palette cleanser from too much Star Wars, I can go look at some X-Men art and have it on hand and not have to go chasing it in someone else's collection. So,
Right.
Yeah, it's understandable. And Aranga, if I can just quickly, because sorry, again, of course, we were talking, plus the comment came in late, so I don't know what you're referring to, but you've legitimately heard that from newer collectors before. Sorry, what comment did I make? That, can you just let me know what comment you're referring to? Sorry, man, if you're still there. Sorry. And let me just hit up a few more. Oh, Daryl, you're gonna get fired, man. If someone wants to impress me with their Fresnetics and right ends, I just shut them up with my Aranga decommissions. Nice. What else we got?
That convention when we were hanging out, this one right here is the one that I
the Wonder Woman piece.
Oh, the one you just posted, yeah.
From Ray Coburg. That was kind of nice. That was actually not the person when I even went there to go pick something up immediately from, and it was talking to Rick that made that experience.
Yeah,
what it was. I mean, it really.
You were coming down to see Starlin, right?
I wanted to see Starlin. That's why I originally booked.
And he had to cancel last.
Yeah, he canceled. Yeah,
and he canceled. But then also Werther Delader was there, and I got a couple. I got a.
Something is killing the children.
Yeah, from Something's Killing the Children. Did a quick remark, and then he'd done that little piece there, and that was actually one of the other. That was the one I stayed in line. I was like first in line when I went there, because I was like, I want to get at least something from Werther Delader on there, so I made sure to get in there. But it was like after I had gotten his, I'm like, where am I going to next? And then I'm sitting down and talking with Rick, and he's just starting to tell me all this history, everything about things that I didn't know about, that I think I posted when I posted this. He was talking about Conan, Monster of Monarch Isle. And that was kind of cool learning about that, because we were talking about Sam Glanzman, one of the pieces that I had, and it kind of connected to this other stuff that we're going into. And so it was like, he spent so much time with me. I ended up doing this. This is like actually one of my favorite commissions right now. I'm like, I can't wait to put this up on my wall.
Yeah.
I just love to hear you talk. That's all I want to say. But I just wanted to address, that's why I left a comment on Mikhail. Look at that. Number one Marvel fan earlier was the guy who had said, it's too bad. I've tried, but there's nobody in my area, whatever. Again, I can't tell you what to do, right? Everybody's their own man. Look, Mikhail was like, he was so excited about it that he was like, hey, I'll jump on a train and go to my first meetup. I mean, that's right. Sometimes you just have to make the extra effort to get there if there's not one near you. And look, the collectors he met were super gracious to a newbie like him. And I mean, that's it. That's what it's all about. The one that I go to, I can honestly say in the 8 years that I've gone, never have I even once witnessed a situation where, I don't know, somebody was treated poorly by another person, you know what I mean? For any reason, let alone because they thought that their art was not of no interest to them or whatever, it's not going to happen. Of course, plenty of people at these gatherings will not truly have interest in your art, but I guarantee you, none of them are going to be pricks about it and shoot you down or whatever, you have to, this is if you take away one thing from this tonight, it's that, if you're considering trying this out or going to one of these things, just focus on you. Be proud of what you collect. Be happy with what you collect. Put some pieces in a folio. Go and attend this thing. You're going to put the folio down. Let people look at it. You're not going to, like I said, be watching it like a hawk. Nobody's going to be stealing it. And then, you go around and look at other people's stuff. Don't worry about it. And that'll be that, and that's it. Like, just, it's not about dick swinging contest and, oh, this guy's Silver Age, I only have modern, his is better. No, the reason you collect that is because that's ultimately what you like, and perhaps dictated by what you can afford, but it doesn't matter. It's about the socializing as much as it is, if not more, than going to show off some artwork. You know what I mean? So don't worry about it. Go if you can, because I'm telling you, it's fun. I don't know anybody that has ever attended one of these things, whoever just came back and said, "Oh, that was shitty. Like, fucking people were laughing at the stuff I collected or whatever." Like, who's gonna, like, you know what I mean? If somebody ever did that, I'd make sure that guy never ever came back. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's the persona non grata, right? Like, it's not going to be you because you have $100 pages in your portfolio or whatever. You know what I mean? So that's it, man. I mean, that's
yeah, there definitely should not be any value stigma when it comes to these kind of collector meetups. I mean, some of my favorite Star Wars art, is the stuff that Brian Tees did for Dark Horse, because he did a whole lot of ink brushwork, and you can still get those pages for under $100. So there's and it's now sort of a storyline that can never happen because of the new canon in the Disney takeover Star Wars universe. But the artwork's incredible, and I love it. I'm still buying it, because I enjoy it.
Yeah.
And so, that's stuff that I pull out of the portfolio first and show off. And, I've got pages that are much more expensive than that, that I've collected that, have their own value and stuff. But, at the moment, his brushwork really has my attention. And, I'll seek it out over some of the stuff that's, classic now. So,
yeah.
Cost and value and quality are all three distinctly different things, and none of the two should overpower the one that matters to you on each individual piece of artwork.
Yeah, rarely are they all going to be in equilibrium.
Right. Yeah. And just because a piece might be the most expensive piece I own doesn't mean it's my favorite. Doesn't mean it's technically, quote unquote, the best. That like you, some of the stuff I have the most affinity for, things that cost me nothing. And not just because they cost me nothing, although that would be reason enough sometimes, but that, things resonate because of how long you spent in line, like what Ian was saying, like, oh, I waited all day and this person knocked it out of the park, or I saved up and I brought my money and I went and I waited all day and I got to the front of the line and the artist was a dick, or something, that will dissuade that thing from becoming your favorite. You might flip it the next week, but, yeah, I mean, there's no wrong way to collect. There's no wrong way to appreciate things. No. And, whether it's you're collecting mono prints or digital artwork or NFTs or anything, that if it's the thing that excites you, your excitement is going to excite other collectors. I'm going to want to know more about it because you love it, and there's nothing better than being in a room full of enthusiastic people, no matter what the arbitrary reason for doing so is.
Yeah. Passion is contagious, like when you see somebody exuding it, right? Like, for sure. Iranga, thank you. And it's really sad for me to hear that, like, that you go and attend one of these meetings and that some guy there is vocalizing to you quietly or privately, like, I don't really fit in here because of, they feel, what's the word?
Other.
Say again?
Other. They just feel other, or for whatever reason. I mean,
for whatever. Yeah. But that's, it's sad. But again, I don't know, man. It's like I said, it's about for me at least, it's about the people even more than the art, right? Yeah. I go, like, originally, like I will say that for me, the first, I would say 3 times, it was about, like, I was like, okay, let's see how this is. This is going to be fun, I think. And then let me try to see as many portfolios as I can. And I freaked when that by the end of the night, I was like, shit, I only saw like 4 portfolios after like 8 or 10 hours or whatever it was, and then I realized, but that's not a big deal because I had a really good time. Well, what was happening during those 8 hours or 10 hours? Well, was chatting and socializing with all these guys, sharing our stories about the hobby and stuff, right? So it's still worth going, even if you haven't seen the art. That's what I'm saying, right?
Yep.
It's as much about the people. For me, it's more about the people. And in fact, this past summer, I should say, I went with my friend and I told him, and we were talking on the way there, and we're driving along, and I'm like, you know what, man? I'm kind of tired of this annual feeling like, oh, every year I gotta make this plan to like, okay, this year I'm gonna hit this guy, that guy, and that guy to make sure at least I see their portfolios. Because that's kind of what I was trying to do, because of the fact that I realized I was only seeing 4 to 5 every given year, you know? And I told him, I was like, I'm done with that shit. It puts so much pressure on me. Who cares? I'll see however many I see.
Yep.
But the bottom line is, I really don't even care. Like, I just want to talk to people.
Yeah.
You know, I want to hang out with my friends. Most of us have become really friendly. Let's just sit around together and shoot the shit. And we have so many laughs. It's just worth it just getting together with that many people with the same interest. Even if I never saw one portfolio, I honestly wouldn't care anymore. It's just a good time to get together, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice. I tried talking like this to my wife, and she's just like,
doesn't get it over the
head. she's like, go talk to some art friends, and we're like, oh, I got some now, yay!
Yep.
But look at that! I didn't even realize, because I hadn't reached them. Here, let me just block these. I didn't know the sex people came in, and they're all over the place. Okay, there we go. Yeah, okay, Marcus, blue line collector here. Yeah, sure you are. I'm not doubting that you may or may not own one, but I know you're, yeah. Oh, there you go. Mono prints for life. Yeah. Okay. Sure. Show us. Show us. Oh, that's funny. So, okay. So number one Marvel fan, he's back and says, I've gone to meets, just no one around me. I've tried in the past to do them, just had the wrong type show up. Oh, wrong type of people showed up? Like, I don't know what that means, but that's kind of ominous. Like some crackhead shows up instead of an art collector. Like
the guy that wipes the sweat off his brow right as he touches all of your art.
Yeah, I don't know. But let me look at the last couple of comments here, and then I guess we'll wrap up so it doesn't go too long. It's already past the 2-hour mark. What do we say? Okay, so so I had said before, if a guy has a bunch of $100 pages, those are some of your favorites. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Me too. I have plenty of pages that I paid less than $100 for. Yeah. Still my favorites, and maybe they're only worth $150 today, and I've owned them for 10 years. Whatever, you know, like whatever. I got my reasons for wanting them, and I have them. And I don't care what anybody thinks, you know.
Yep.
Mikhail says Tom Lyle Starman pages go for about 100. Do they still go for 100? Because that seems cheap, and I will show you them all day. I didn't know you accumulated a bunch of Tom Lyle Starman pages. That's interesting. Oh, and Aranga says, what's he saying here? Before I forget, I got to thank Matt for parting with his Cassaday. Oh, the DPS, yeah, still one of my faves.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, that's cool.
Well, I got another amateur dueling dealers thing coming up with Bill. Not necessarily soon, but sooner than later. So there'll be a lot of other really cool stuff. A lot of people in this chat bought pieces, you know, from the last one, which was a lot of fun. But again, it's, you know, I feel like I'm a caretaker for a certain amount of time, and if I find somebody else who clearly enjoys it more, I want them to have it, you know.
Yeah.
And you know, and if the price makes sense and it allows me to kind of fuel my own collection in the direction that I want it to go, and that's better. You know, I think while we all clearly view this as somewhat of an investment, I think that it's really, you're investing in your own joy. You know, it's not even necessarily what's on the page. It's the idea of community. It's the idea of this thing that represents this thing that you collected. If you collected comics, you know, talking about floppies and things, and you know that it all connects into a kind of provenance that has a higher currency than just the value of what goes into it. Because it's just paper and pencil and ink, and you know, you see things that can sell for millions of dollars, and you see things that can sell for 20, and that none of that should affect your joy.
Well said. Absolutely, exactly. Caesar. So Caesar said he's gone to one art meetup in LA. It was more about stories than art, but then he had a follow-up question, more about stories, talking about stories about the art. So, but Caesar, I just want to know though, can you specify, did you enjoy that? Or were you, and be honest, were you kind of upset that it wasn't as much about the art and you were, because you didn't get to see a lot of art, or were you cool with it? I'm curious, because I will say, again, for me, in my experience, originally, because I was traveling 6 hours in a car, right? It was about like, yes, I know I'm going to see people that I know there and that'll be fun. But of course, I still want to make sure I see as much art as possible. Of course, that was the goal, right? But then I kind of quickly realized, I didn't, even though I didn't see a lot, it was still a ton of fun. You know, it's really a ton of fun. Just chatting with people like that. And like I said, just being around other like-minded, passionate individuals, you know? Man. So that's it. Hart says, I prefer, and I bet you're joking, or maybe you're not, but I think you're joking to say that you're into art. You prefer the art to stories. But okay, Caesar says, yes, it was cool. Art was there and everyone showed their stuff. It was fun. Good, man. That's awesome. Man, I hope you do it again. You know, like I said, everybody should attend more. And you prefer donuts. That's a great segue, because next week's episode is on the greatest American donuts. Please tune in next Sunday at 8 Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, and we'll all.
There'll be a Survey Monkey poll that'll come out on Wednesday for everyone to provide their input.
For those guys in LA, go to Donut Man out in Glendora. Those are the best donuts in Southern California.
Yeah.
Real quick. Next week, that's obviously, I was joking. Next week is going back to a one-on-one. And I know somebody just noticed you like, you mentioned you like the roundtables. I do too. I've said it from the beginning. The roundtables are my favorite. I would do them every week. It's hard to get 3 people to come on. And to get their schedules to come on at the same time, blah, 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 which is why I tend to do a lot more one-on-ones. That's the only reason. Otherwise, I would do roundtables every week. So speaking of one-on-one next week, and speaking of things that you might see at a art gathering, a collector art gathering that is not normally your thing, Mark Vega is another one of following in the footsteps of many collectors that I've had. Probably had 3 or 4 collectors, including Ian, who's here tonight, who have only been in the hobby either 3 years or less, anywhere between 18 months to 36 months. Mark has also been in the hobby for somewhere within that time. And he is primarily an indie comics lover and collector. And it looks like it's definitely out of the mainstream, not the type of stuff that I personally I'm interested in collecting, but I like to know what other people like when it's different than what I collect, and just chat with them and see what is it that interests them about that stuff. You know, what calls to them about it. And so I asked him to be on the show, and he said yes. So I'm very happy, and that'll be exactly a week from tonight, on the 11th of December, at the usual 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. So thank you for that. Let me just check any last minute.
And as Marcus pointed out, you may have set yourself up for failure now, Ruben.
Why?
If you're going from Vegas this week to Vega next week, and you're going to have to do Veg on the 3rd week.
Yeah.
You may have to start going through the phone book to find that collector.
Yeah, we can all show comic art featuring donuts, the best donut covers.
I love Mark's stuff. It wasn't normally my stuff, and I love reading it. So if you read the words and all the stuff he posts, those are some great strips he's posting. I love that stuff.
Yeah.
Jason, thank you, my friend. I appreciate seeing you here every week. I appreciate your support, man. Thank you so much. Have a great night yourself, and have a good work week. And thank you, as always, for tuning in. Who else we got? Yes, Hart. So I hope to see you next week. And Hart has agreed to be my guest officially, even though he's been on as my sort of co-host for some show and tells. He'll be my one-on-one guest a couple of weeks from tonight. And what else have we got? Matt Marcus saying Gary Groth should be invited next week. We spoke about Gary Groth for like what seemed like 30 minutes minimum on one of my shows. Remember that? That was actually pretty fun. That's when we went off the rails and talked about all kinds of crap. And that's when Stanley was getting sort of upset because we were talking about everything other than original art. And again, I'm just yanking your chain, Stanley, if you're still watching. And Marvel, number one Marvel fan, fun show tonight, guys. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate it.
And we hope you find some collectors in your area that are
exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. I do hope that hopefully, I don't know, some of the things that my guests have said tonight or that I've said, and might spark ideas or whatever, and maybe you give it a shot, number one Marvel fan, and you try it. You at least don't rule it out for the future completely, And getting another sex thing here. Hold on. And okay.
Must mean we're popular.
Yep.
And I'm getting a request from Rick. Rick, you want me to end the run with Malvin V?
Because
Vegas,
Vega.
Yeah. Right.
Valve V.
Yeah, man. You guys are cut up, man. Oh my God, that's funny. There we go. Number one Marvel. Exactly. There you go. Hey, we're just trying. We're trying our best, right? Like, it's about collectors helping collectors. I mean, that's really what it's all about. And, like I said, hopefully in the future, something else works out for you, whether it's you doing it or you finding another group to join or whatever, So that's it, guys. Guys, don't hang up. Let me put you back in the studio the green room for a second. And I'll be with you in a minute. All right.
Good night to everyone in TV land.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
All right, everybody. Thank you again so much. Stanley, there you are, my friend. Yes, really fun, entertaining show. Thank you. I appreciate that, man. I'm surprised, actually, Stanley, that you're not begging us to go for up until the third hour, because I know how much you like it to go late. But thank you, Aranga. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you, as always, Mikhail as well. Thank all of you, really. You guys are the best. I really, really appreciate it. I try hard to keep this going every week, and it's getting harder and harder to get people to come on. But I don't want to miss a week. I love doing it. It's just a really, really, really fun way to just hang out with my pals, So, and as long as you guys keep showing up to watch, I mean, that's really what encourages me to keep it going. So, really appreciate it. Thank you, Dino, for dropping by again and for sticking around pretty long this time. Thank you, Mike, NSN Art. Thank you. Good night. And yes, once again, thank you, Nick, and everybody again. YouTube.com/the Let me put that up there for you. /TheEXP Friday nights at 7 p.m. Eastern or 4 p.m. Pacific. There you go. All right. And Hart, thank you. I'll be replying to your email from last night later tonight. And Ascani Son is in the house. You never even told me you were in the house. Thank you. I appreciate it. Hopefully you'll reveal yourself, unless you just came in late and are only pretending you were here for the whole duration. I don't trust you. Aloha. And thank you as always, Mr. Red Jack, JC. Always fun, always educational. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you to my guests, of course. They're awesome. I always appreciate them giving me their time. And yes, sir. There's one of them right there. And it's getting hard to keep it going. Yeah. Just save those bad puns 2 weeks from now. Don't be throwing that in. We're up and staying. You did that to me last week. I don't know if maybe on your end, when you're putting the character in, maybe it actually shows as a character. But for us here, I don't know. I don't know what these guys are seeing, but all I see is a square. I see a square. So sorry, man. I don't know what that means, but thank you for being here, man. I appreciate you all as always. Cali Comics, thank you for coming in. On behalf of Ian. That's very nice to show him some support. Appreciate you hanging out all this time. I really do appreciate that. Thank you. And I hope you tune in and check out some future shows, hopefully. And there you go. My other guest saying good night. And the award for the biggest at work slacker for 2022, Daryl Reitz. By the way, did I say that right, Daryl? Let me know. Is it Reitz or Rights? And shit, I'll be damned if I'm not right on either of those. But let me know. And my third guest, of course, there you go, Ian, saying good night all. So thank you, and thank you, David. I appreciate you being more of a lurker tonight. That's cool, but I'm glad you were here. As always, I appreciate you. Thank you so much. And oh man, how many comments came in here? It's a YouTube emoji. Is it really? Oh, okay. Then I don't know what that means, but I thank We're Up and Staying for dropping in anyways. That's a good one though, Hart. He's just trying to tell me that I'm a square. Exactly. I don't know. When you're good again in the view show, we all want to see the one with your wife. Yeah, right. Yeah, tons of people want to see me talk to somebody who knows nothing about art or doesn't care a thing about the art. She does like to look at it when I get it in, but yeah. But thanks, Mr. Rajek, as always. And thank you. Is he chatting from the sidelines in tonight's game? I'm not sure. But even David Matheny is putting in a square. What the hell are these squares? I don't know, man. But again, thank you guys. Got to wrap it up. Appreciate it. And let me just put this up as a reminder for next week. Please join me next week as we do another Comic Art One-on-One with Mark Vega and Indie Comics Spotlight. So I think it'll be a lot of fun, and certainly I am expecting to learn a lot because he collects mainly art that I'm not that familiar with. So please tune in and check that out, and I will see you guys then. Peace.